Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We want to thank everybody for being here. We have a lot of awesome recognitions to get through, but before we do that, I just want to welcome everybody. Number one, we are here for the purposes of a Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting. Today is March 18th, 2025. We have Board Member Bade, who will be joining us remotely, and Board Member or Vice President Brian Jensen is excused this evening. So this is your team tonight. We have a couple of different teams that we're honoring this evening, but I also want to first start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we can get ahead with the meeting. So I'll go ahead and lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent, thank you. I also want to take a moment to recognize our employee groups and their representatives this evening. From Buildings and Grounds, we have President Elia Ocampo. For Child Nutrition, we have President Tanya Slaughter. For SLEA, the Salt Lake Education Association, we have President Mike Harmon and Vice President Chelsea Acosta, who are with us this evening. And for SLASA, the Salt Lake Association of School Administrators, we have President Adrian Lobato, I know is here this evening as well. So thank you for joining us. Our first recognition this evening is for our science fair winners. Candace Penrod, are you here? I thought I saw you earlier. There, hi Candace. Would you mind coming up and presenting our science fair winners to the board and to the community this evening?
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm pleased to be here tonight with the Salt Lake City School District Board of Education. Sam is putting up for us the awardees, so you can look at those as we do this recognition. So good evening. The Salt Lake City Science and Engineering Fair was held February 4th through 7th at Riley Elementary School. Students from 17 schools participated this year in 12 categories, ranging from biomedical engineering to physics, astronomy, and math, to computer science and applied computational models. Their projects are extraordinary and exemplify a world-class STEM education being realized in Salt Lake City School District. If their projects and achievements are any indication of the intellect, ingenuity, and critical thinking skills our students are developing, we are in very good hands. I am confident that our students will be the scientists, computer programmers, engineers, and mathematicians of the future that will lead us and our communities through wicked problems and seemingly insurmountable challenges associated living in our advanced society. So without further ado, I invite the board to join me up here. I'm going to call the award winners up, so if you can come up here, please. And we are going to honor our students and their accomplishments. And then students, as I call your name, move up to the front. And we'll start with Dr. Tiffany Hall, and you'll shake her hand, and you'll move kind of over here in front of Jason Olson. And then when we're done with everyone coming up, we'll take a picture with everyone. Okay, and I'm gonna flip this way now. There we go. I'm gonna go on the back side. There we go. Okay, and before I get started, I just want to recognize that and just explain a little bit. We have school fairs, and winners at our school fairs in grades 5th and up advance to our district fair. And then if you place in our district fair, you go to the University of Utah Regional Science and Engineering Fair. And then if you do really well there and you're in high school, you go to the International Science and Engineering Fair. And this fair is very prestigious. It's top-notch. Salt Lake City School District has produced many winners that have participated in this fair, and several of them have been grand champions and have won hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships to top STEM institutions in the world. So I just really want to recognize the capacity and the achievements of our students and our teachers. Let's clap for our teachers right now. I don't think any of these students are with us tonight, but we have 2 students that are going to participate in the International Science and Engineering Fair, and it truly has students from many countries. Krishnam Goal and Adi Umagawaran, both from West High. Let's give them a round of applause. And then Ian Jake Kim was invited to be an observer, which is a big deal. So you go a year ahead and you kind of see how the fair goes. And then we have 2 alternates if any of the other participants can attend, Ming Chuan Chang and Bala Naga Saharara, all from West High. So thank you for that. Okay, so this evening we have from Bonneville Elementary School, we'd like to recognize Sophia Robeson and Lila Hathaway. Could you come up to the front, please? Thank you. And again, the project names and are up on the marquees. Okay, from Dilworth Elementary, we'd like to recognize Della Wagner and Nora Reinhardt. From Highland Park this evening, we have Kira Brandt. From Indian Hills Elementary, Jack Park and Solomon Christian. From Mountain View Elementary, Isabel Bradley. Okay, from Mountain View, also Danielle Van Heusen. From Whittier Elementary, Rowan Kotzer Wells. And Abby Marsh. In our middle school division, from Hillside Middle School, Alexander Bonner. And Gwendolyn Slattery. Okay, this is a momentous occasion. Go Rams! Highland High participated this year. I'm going to give it up for Rainier Slattery. Honestly, thank you for getting this thing going at Highland. Thank you. I worked at Hillside for years and fed into the Highland community, so I am thrilled that we have a leader at Highland High School that's going to be participating in Science Fair. All right, we have from Salt Lake Center for Science Education, Lillian Oscarson. We have Lucia Horner. Javin Robbins. And Betty Otterstrom. Okay, if there are any students who snuck in and didn't get on my list, please come up to the front. If you're here, come on up. Come on up. Tell me your name. Tell me your name. Edith? Edith? What's your last name? And you're from? What school?
Wasatch Elementary.
Okay, Edith Wilson from Wasatch Elementary. Annie? Where are you from? What school? Nibley Park. Annie from Nibley Park. Thanks, Annie. Elliot Gilbert from Nibley Park. Is there anyone else? All right, we have other students who couldn't be with us tonight. Well, we are so grateful, and I just want you all to know science rocks. And you're really amazing students. Your projects impressed so many people. How many of you had a good experience at the regional fair last week? How many of you went up to the University of Utah? How did it feel to be there as a scientist or engineer? Let's hear it for yourselves. Like, give yourselves a hand. That's amazing.
Okay, everyone's gonna have to be buddies. So just squeeze in.
Come on, Al.
Squeeze in as much as you guys can. Oh, that looks great. And then big smiles. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Sorry if that's not loud. Okay, ready on the count of three, everyone. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, on the count of three, say science. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Science! Good job, thank you. Thank you.
It does. No, that's so neat.
All right. Just take another minute to let the room settle. All right, let's give it up for those science fair winners one more time. All right, our next recognition this evening, something that we're really excited about and really proud of in honor of National Women's History Month for this year. As you walked into our meeting today, you may have noticed a series of student artwork on display. These pieces were created by Highland High School students in Tisha Meyer's class, each inspired by a prominent women-female artist. In recognition of National Women's History Month, we are proud to showcase 12 paintings that celebrate the impact of women in the arts. The artists who inspired our Highland High students include Georgia O'Keeffe, Janet Fish, Edie Robertson, Harriet Lowther, and, I'm going to say this wrong, Toyin Oji Odutala. This exhibit is a tribute to the creativity, resilience, and influence of women in the arts, reminding us all of the vital contributions women have made and continue to make throughout history. Before you leave, we invite you to take a moment to admire these paintings in honor of National Women's History Month. Thank you. And certainly, and Superintendent Grant.
Oh, you can introduce the next topic.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, so their next recognitions are also very exciting. As you know, our West High women's basketball team and our Highland High boys basketball team made the state finals this year. I had the opportunity to attend some games at the Huntsman Center, and I know Board Member Anderson was there as well, which is really exciting. And I guess I would turn it over to Dr. Grant to go ahead and introduce who our folks are this evening.
I just wanted to say, first off, we've been celebrating teachers a lot in board meetings for their remarkable work and the number of awards our teachers win. I love it that tonight we're recognizing students who are winning in science and engineering fairs, students who have excelled in athletics in our basketball teams, and students who are producing beautiful art in celebration of Women's History Month. And so to see all of this at once with our students is just exciting. And so we get to recognize the basketball teams here, just the enormous accomplishment to make it to a state final. It's heartbreaking to have not taken home the state trophy, but it is something, having been in the place of not having won that trophy either, it is still something to be terribly proud about in what you've accomplished as an athlete in school. And so we want to invite up coaches. So the coach of the West High girls basketball team, if you could come up, Junior Salavi.
Hey, Junior.
If we could ask you to say some things here about your season and your team, and we'd love to have them come up and stand with you or face the audience
why not?
as you're talking. If we
Why do you
could.
guys come up and stand with me?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Come on.
up here up front? Either way.
Why don't you guys face the crowd, you guys?
Come face the
Oh, you want me to turn around too?
There you go.
Hello. I just want to take this time to thank all of those, and especially our families that have, created an opportunity for our young ladies to have this opportunity to be in that position. We want to especially thank the board and our administration, and we want to congratulate Chris Jones and his group. Make sure you guys give applause, Highland Rams for the accomplishments they have. I know you got a good group coming back. Congratulations on that. I mean, I guess the accomplishments is, I don't think anybody feels good to get there and not, achieve that goal, but I think we're definitely proud of the season that we had. I'm really proud of these young ladies. 4 years ago, this team only had won one game in like 5 years. And so to see them grow into something special was really special for me to watch. I also want to take this time to thank James Yapies for his support throughout the season, not just with girls basketball, but especially with our football team and, helping us with the clinic and the extra, the support he gave us throughout the season. Thank you so much. And but really, the accomplishment for us is we had a goal to have a 4.0 as a team, and I'm glad to tell you we didn't accomplish that. So we did as a team raise that GPA to a team 3.4. We're really excited about that, and so thank you, ladies, for all you've done. We have a gift for you guys for the next time you guys come to West High to support our young ladies. So please, this is just a token of our appreciation for you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for the time again. Thank you all. Go Panthers.
Oh, over here.
Yeah, let's have you guys, should we just stand here? Or wherever you want. What's your guys' demo? If you guys could come just on the top riser, then it's closer, it'll be friendlier.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it, and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. As much as possible. Okay, everyone, on the count of 3, you're gonna have to smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Congrats, district proud.
All right, let's give it up for the West High ladies team one more time. And I know Bryce is gonna love this. Even though I'm an East High Leopard, I'm still gonna rock this hoodie. So, congratulations, ladies. Up next, we have our Highlands men's basketball team. We'd like to invite up Chris Jones, our coach, just to say a few words and invite our team up.
Yeah, just circle around. You saw what they did.
Fill out space.
Hi, Vi. You made it. That's all right. You're good. What's up, Coach Lorney? Hi, buddy.
Yes. I'm impressed. We are gonna have to stand up behind you.
Yeah, they can't. You guys can't see now.
It's all
Well,
right.
and they left, but congrats to the West High girls team. They had an incredible year. They only lost one game, I think, maybe two, but they had a heck of a year. I think they were undefeated, and then they lost the championship game to Bountiful in a heck of a game right before we played. So that was fantastic with what they've done. And so, on to our squad. We had an incredible year. We finished co-region champs for the first time in 15 years that Highland's been part of a region championship. We had the most wins in school history with 23 wins. We ended up at 23-4.
3.
And obviously played in the state championship game for the first time in 15 years as well. And we're planning on getting back there next year and with a little different result, I hope. But yeah, just briefly, these guys were awesome. They're not quite all here tonight. Most of them are all here. A couple are playing spring sports. With the weather, I think the board should consider making sports start in April, not the end of February. My dad drives the school bus for Salt Lake City School District, and every morning he gets up and has a route or has an activity plan, and it gets canceled. So it's crazy weather. But yeah, the guys were great this year. I think we had 5 guys averaging, our starting 5 averaging double figures. We didn't really have one guy that has got 25 and everybody else got 7 or 8. We had 5 guys scoring double figures. We were incredibly balanced. And any one of them could have averaged 20 plus. On a different situation or on a different team, but they all sacrificed and gave of themselves for the betterment of the team and the group. We have a truckload of kids that probably could play and start at a lot of other schools, but they stick it out here at Highland, and we're a great part of our program as well. So, we have a lot of great things going at Highland, but the first thing we have is that we have an amazing principal. Jeremy Chatterton, he is fantastic, gives us every opportunity we can and gives us every reason to be successful. We have great people in the community that support us and do a lot for our team. We have great players. And then probably more important than anything, when you're the coach, you have great parents. And our parents are fantastic. They let the kids play. They let me coach. They might not always like it, but they let us do our thing and love their boys, and I love coaching them. So thanks to the board for recognizing this, and thanks for everything you guys do to put us in a position to be successful and give us the resources we needed to do our thing. So thanks to the boys and thanks to the board. Thank you.
Can I get you guys to go that way, one whole person? Oh, there, you got your black on. Thank you. Okay. Boys, you're gonna have to squeeze and be best friends, or if we can have another row of players in the front.
Come on, Bodie, little guys.
Can we get two more players up to the front row? One more player up to the, okay, perfect, you fill it up, perfect, okay. And then squeeze, okay, now I need everyone to move this way a step. Okay, perfect. That looks great. Okay, on the count of 3, ready? 1. Alan, can you move that? Perfect, okay. On the count of 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you, Coach. And please thank your dad for us too, Coach Jones. Candace, it sounds like we have one more person in Science Fair winner that we needed to recognize.
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
We have one more person that got here just right after we got done. So Luigi Correa from Hillside Middle School, will just come up. Thank you. Yep. Is that right here?
One more picture.
Yeah. Thank you. You want to come over here, Luigi? Congratulations. Thank you.
You get the whole board to yourself. For better or worse. Okay. Ready? On the count of 3, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, board. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for recognizing our students alongside us as the board. We have awesome students, we have awesome teachers and administrators and coaches, as you saw tonight. So thank you for all the support that you give our students community. Their accomplishments are so great. Moving on in our agenda, we have the consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as posted.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have one question.
Ashley?
The Aspire test day, where we're making an asynchronous day, I understand we need to do that and move it forward, but I'm wondering, if we're expected to have that annually, the next time, would this just go on our regular calendaring? Is there a reason we're scheduling it as a one-off event? And do parents know about it, I guess? So
I
two-parter.
don't know about the parent question. If Dr. Taylor could maybe address that, but yes, this was just missed in bringing this to the board on the original agenda, but we will make sure that comes on to be approved with the rest of the calendar.
The schools have included that information in their calendars that were sent out to the parents, so parents should have been notified via the schools. We were doing this to rectify the situation so that the annual calendar will be aligned and approved by the board.
Got it. So I just wanted to clarify that parents don't need to know new information about the calendar. We're just bringing the calendar into compliance on our end.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Any other questions? All right, we'll go ahead and call it for a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salzer, yes.
Amanda Longwell, yes.
And Mohammed, are you able to vote on that one with a thumbs up or a?
Mohammed, yes.
Perfect, thank you, Mohammed. Excellent. Moving along, we didn't have anybody sign up for a request to speak, so we'll go ahead and move to our reports agenda. Before we get into the agenda relative to reports, our discussion agenda as well, we do have a special public comment period. We have 2 items for a time certain at 7:15 p.m. The first item would be our public input on draft 2025-2026 student fee schedules. And the second would be our public input on Nibley Park grade level reconfiguration. So our first reports agenda item is the 2025-2026 preliminary property tax rates. B.A. Kearsley?
Okay, do I need to do something, Sam? Oh, this. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, so as tonight's report, it's our next step in the budget. We're going to discuss preliminary property tax rates. We call them preliminary because we have to do some estimates on what assessed value is going to be. The actual final property tax rates will be calculated by the Utah State Tax Commission, and that happens in the middle of June. So here, the property tax revenue is largely based on a rate times an assessed value. We're estimating assessed valuation to increase next year by 4.8% for the 2025 tax year. And again, as I said, the actual valuation will be reported by the State Tax Commission in June. Just a little information on what is a certified tax rate. So certified tax rate is all the values times the certified tax rate generates the same amount of revenue that we received the prior year. If the assessed values are up, then the certified tax rate would decline to yield the same amount of proceeds from the prior year. The previous year's revenue there is no inflationary increase in the certified tax rate calculation. New construction increases current year revenue. Sometimes you hear that as new growth. And then the basic levy is set to yield what the legislature determined and therefore is considered a certified tax rate. We have the basic levy, which is a major funding source of the weighted people unit, and that is set by the legislature. And then general obligation bond payment levy, so that's whatever levy is needed to meet our annual obligation on whatever general obligation bonds that we have. This just shows some history of what the tax rates have been. Our calculated tax rate for 2025, 0.004139, there you can see is an increase from the prior year's rate of .000364 due to a couple parts, largely, again, that basic school levy set by the legislature. And then as the bond passed, we'll start making payments on that bond. And so there'll be that respective increase to the general obligation bond levy to generate those revenues for our debt payments. This just kind of shows, so homeowners get a 45% discount on their assessed value, and then the rate gets applied to that to determine how much they pay in taxes. This schedule shows, the effect of the tax rate on a $100,000 home. Again, we understand there's probably not in existence in the state of Utah a $100,000 home, but this makes the math easy. So if your house is $500,000, you just times it by 5. If it's $1 million, you times it by 10. So what we're showing there at the end of the day, property tax would be $227.65 a year for every $100,000 worth of assessed value. Businesses don't get that 45% discount, so they're taxed at 100% of their assessed value. This chart shows the effect on $1 million assessed value business, and that's just over $4,000 a year in property tax. Beginning with 2025, so the state legislature did some changes to the tax rate for 2025. So beginning in the 2025 tax year, the basic school levy will be deposited into the state general fund. State revenue consisting of a mix of basic school levy, property tax, and income tax revenue will then be allocated to LEAs to fund the weighted pupil unit. So as it has been in the past, we would get the basic rate revenue straight from the county allocated to the district, and then the state would kick in money from income tax to fully fund the weighted pupil unit. The way that's going to happen going in the future is all the money will go to the state, and then they'll allocate all the money back to us in state revenue to fund the weighted pupil unit. We'll get to this more in another budget discussion, but we have a fund called Taxes Pass-Through Fund. It's Ashley's favorite fund. Since this will be, it's a levy that the school board, it's levies, shall we say, a tax that the school board levies, but we don't collect. So we'll show it in the pass-through fund coming in and then going out, so net zero, but that's how we'll be reporting it to reflect the proper accounting method. And then over in the general fund, we'll get that state revenue coming in. This kind of illustrates that. So this is property tax revenue by fund. You see up till now, that little green line has been our pass-through, and then for 2025, that green line grows quite a bit because of that basic rate that's now going to be a pass-through tax levy. So for 2025, we are not recommending any change to the certified tax rate, so that's no tax increase. And again, the final tax rate will be calculated by the Utah State Tax Commission in June. Just some next budget steps. April 15th, we'll review the capital projects and debt service fund budgets. We'll have small group meetings, so for new board members, to help get down into maybe details of a budget, I invite you to come in and visit with me, and we'll go through and ask some questions, and those are called the small group meetings. May 6th, executive summary. May 20th, our final budget review, and on June 3rd, it's anticipated that the board will approve both the revised budget for this year and the original budget for next year, along with the tax rate. And with that, are there any questions?
And before I take any questions, I have asked Board Member Williams to help keep time, being that Vice President Jensen isn't here tonight. So, any questions? Ashley?
Can you just recap for us which buckets we've gone through and go back to that calendar of the timeline? So what have we gone through? What do we have left to go through? And are there any buckets that are not on this calendar that we didn't review?
So the general fund is it's our biggest fund. It's also the last fund we'll discuss in board meeting before approval, just because that's the one that it takes us the longest to actually estimate for next year. And that will be included in the final budget review discussion on the 20th. There's also internal service funds, which they're not required to necessarily have a budget, because they charge other funds user fees. But we'll quickly review those in probably our May 20th meeting.
And which have we already covered? I'm just trying to keep track of.
Yeah, so we haven't done any of our funds yet. So our capital and debt fund on our next board meeting will be our first funds. And then we'll include the rest of the funds in that May 20th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Alan? Thank you, Board. Thank you, Alan. We'll move on to our next report agenda item, which is the Strategic Plan for Student Achievement, Pillar 3, Report and Update. Dr. Grant, do you want to introduce this for us?
Yes, I think we're hearing from both James Yapias and John Chatwin, who are our leads on this, as we go through the presentation.
Apologies, gonna plug in so my laptop doesn't die mid-presentation.
You good?
I suppose that would help. Good evening, board members and Superintendent and Alan. Thank you for the opportunity to come chat with you. We are excited to tell you a little bit about what we've been working on under Pillar 3. So there are 3 goals under this pillar. The first one is family partnerships and engagement in education. The summary for this goal: Salt Lake City School District will ensure all families are valued, respected, and are treated as equal partners in designing the educational experiences of their children. Under the plan, there were no specific goals for this year, but there are for 25-26. However, our schools still have been engaging in activities that will help us move forward and move us closer to that goal. Under Objective 1, which states that parents will experience meaningful school interactions and increased involvement as a result of improved family and school partnerships. We saw our schools this year take activities and programs to help families transition after closures and boundary changes. I know you've previously heard from Mr. Brian Conley about this, so I won't go into great detail. But we have seen also schools really reaching out to plan activities that support student learning and really involve the families in being part of their child's education. We also have great efforts to connect families with community resources, and it's something that will continue for the following school year. The 2 goals are to implement the family school partnership model unique to our district and to create family school partnership teams in our schools. A few examples of schools that are reaching out and doing a great job engaging their families. Glendale Middle School, for example, has been hosting celebrations this year to recognize students both for academic success and positive behavior, something that's really important to highlight. Rose Park has held 2 Love to Read events on a Saturday where they have brunch and books and support connections between school and home and support the board's goal of improving literacy among our students. Nivlee Park has also provided family literacy evenings, including teaching parents how to use technology, how to keep their students engaged, promoting school and college career readiness. Bonneville Elementary has had family engagement nights, and they do a lot of monthly activities. Like recently, they held a skate night downtown. They had a talent show earlier this year called Bonneville's Got Talent, which was a great time. Uinta Elementary has hosted PTA activities throughout the year to help engage their families, and Mountain View continues their strong tradition between the school and the community learning center right there. They're really great at working with local partners in support of families. Our goal number 2, community partnerships, I will turn over to Mr. James Yapias, Director of our Salt Lake Education Foundation.
Thank you, board members, and we appreciate you for giving us the opportunity to share some information with you. I also want to add to what Yandere was talking about with regards to communities transition after closure boundaries. Under the direction of Dr. Grant, we work with the foundation to give $120,000 to assist those schools with funding and support to make sure that the families are really well taken care of, and most importantly, our students. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Grant, for encouraging and working with the foundation to be able to do that. But with regards to the partnerships, community partnerships, I want to say I have a group of people here that wanted to be a part of this presentation. We have our CLC coordinators and some of the assistants, and we also have some principals here who are amazing. But what I want to go back to is our goal. Salt Lake City School District will build and nurture relationships with community partners to elevate our students and family academic achievement. Salt Lake City School District values community members, leaders, and business partners. As far as our objective, the students and families will be provided with critical resources needed for students to focus on learning. And that's what we do. When we look at the completed tasks here, or goals, or objectives, one of the things that we really focus on is building partnerships, making sure that our principals, nurses, counselors, community learning centers, all of our school administrators are learning about the opportunities and how we work with business industry, and we've done that. We're continuing to collect data throughout the year to see how we're connecting business industry and our partners with our CLCs, along with making sure our counselors and social workers understand that. But one of the other areas that we've done this last year is implemented professional development for administrators in person and via Zoom, so that way they understand what resources we have within our district. And that's really important because we want to make sure that our principals are well supported, and the end result is our students are supported in the schools. Some of the key practices that we've implemented, and this is thank you to our CLCs. Our CLCs have been focusing on building authentic relationships with school and community, value community members as knowledge holders, employing community members in our schools and CLCs, seek commitment with partnerships, asset-based approach programs build on the strength and interest of our students and families, focus on capacity building. So a little bit about capacity building when we go into the UTA partnership that we have. In 2023-24, we had 50, as far as the ridership counts and the trip counts, I'm gonna go into the trip counts, 56,000 in February. And in this year, 2024-25, we had 61,000. As far as distinct users, we went from 4,300 to 4,100, okay? And then we go, I get excited about this one, the next slide. The average monthly trips by hour. When you look at our students, when are they accessing UTA? You go from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the peak, and then from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. is another peak. And most importantly, and throughout the day, all the way till 11 o'clock at night, you know, when our kids are working, have a second job, they're in their apprenticeship program, they are coming home and, you know, they're going to the library, maybe appointments, and they're using the UTA. As far as the on-demand, the bottom one, same thing. All of our kids on the west side, west of 300 west, all the way to north and south of, I think, 2100 south, benefit from this opportunity. The next slide, I think it just gives us the monthly trips, which is 61,700, and then the distinct users is 4,300. That is building capacity.
And I'll just add, before James moves on off of this, that these numbers are just partway through the school year, so we will see these increase by the end of the year.
Thank you. Appreciate you. So Salt Lake City, so before I move on to the next part though, none of this work could be done without the support of the board. I mean, really, you've given us a direction, This is what we've been able to accomplish over the years. Salt Lake City School District's community learning centers operate under the expanded community schools model. It is a national model. We've had people from out of state come visit our CLCs. They want to learn more about it, but it is the expanded community school model. The primary focus of our CLC is to provide holistic educational experience to students in our district. Through CLC programs and partnerships, students and families can access extended learning opportunities, family engagement programs, and access to wraparound support such as health care, mental health support, food access, and other essential resources the students may need to be in school focused on learning. Another example to help you with this is, for example, the return on investment. We always talk about what have we done the last 15 years and as we move forward. 99 partner organization businesses and donors invest in Salt Lake City School District CLC programs through in-kind donations, monetary donations, volunteer services, and other support services. 776 volunteers contributed hundreds of service hours. 32,170 individuals received food through the CLC's on-site mobile pantry. This is only the CLC, but you got to take a look at our 25 pantries. Some of them are brick and mortar, some are mobile pantries. We have 25 of those in our school. Dental services, 470 students received dental screenings. 143 received follow-up dental care. I was just informed by a doctor yesterday that a student never received dental care all 12 years. This is a high school student until she visited West High School. I was excited about that. As far as the medical services for Liberty and Rose Park clinics combined, 686 encounters, 73% of patients ages 45 and over. Top 5 reasons for visiting is immunizations, diabetes, general exam, hypertension, routine child wellness exam. Total charity, $166,000. Total discount on bills, $432,000. Bad debt written off, $135,000. Vision services, you look at that, it's 8,058 vision screenings were completed. 236 individuals received new glasses screening, an exam value total of $210,000. When you look at the next 2 slides, I want to thank Christina Kendall. And I want to say that a lot of these agreements are overseen by Alan Kearsley and Christina. We're constantly looking for partners, and we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of a memorandum of understanding. But we wouldn't be able to do this without the feedback and making sure that our students are receiving the proper care, but most importantly, bringing in the partners into our community, into our schools. Another example that I want to share is this, and I think Junior Solovi a little bit ago talked about his athletes and all of the high school athletes. So let me just share some statistics. Total visits, clinic visits at West High School, 1,805. Primary care visits, 1,126. Total sports physicals were completed at no cost to our kids, 337. 86% of the patients who qualify receive mental health support. 37% of all visits were behavioral mental health visits. 100 behavioral health referrals made by West High School pediatrician. 679 behavioral health visits completed. The last bullet on that section, on an average, it took students needed behavioral health services through the West High Clinic 16 days to access mental health services. Date to referral being made from the date the referral was made, total 17 days for therapy and 10 days for psychiatry. In comparison, for community wait times, for private insurance patients needing therapy, 2 to 3 months, and child psychiatry, 6 months up to 2 years. So the last part with patient demographic, 57% female, 70% clinic utilizers live in low poverty child opportunity index. 40% of all clinic visits were uninsured. 16% of all visits were covered by Utah Medicaid. And then the next slide just shows the demographics by race. And as far as our volunteer, I'm gonna go just through it real quick. The volunteer program, 523 volunteers were fingerprinted, including 75 coaches. We depend on our coaches, and we're constantly making sure that we're available for that. And those are conducted at Liberty, thanks to Alan Kearsley. We get the support to do that. Last, I just want to say, a lot of the work with, like Yandri mentioned, family partnerships and engagement in education, goal 1, and goal 2, community partnerships, wouldn't happen if we didn't have the support from you. But I want to just summarize by saying, we in Salt Lake City School District, we want to build and nurture relationships with community partners to elevate students and family achievement. But most importantly, foster partnerships with local businesses and community organizations to support educational initiatives, mentorships, internships, donations, and resources and time. Develop programs with local organizations to provide tutoring, after-school activities, and career exploration opportunities. Organize events that include students, families, and community members to celebrate academic achievement, science fairs, art nights, and readathons. So now I'm going to turn time over to Yandri.
Pardon me, caffeine break. So goal number 3 is the last one under this pillar, public perception and connections. The summary for this one states that the Salt Lake City School District will maintain positive relationships with students, families, community members, elected officials, and community leaders. Elevate the public's perception of our school district as a valuable partner and as a team of influential educational experts, and building trust in the transparency and integrity of our systems. So under objective 1, it states that students, families, and community members will feel more connected and informed about district programs, achievements, and operations. And the 3 goals for this last year, 2 of them are completed and 1 is in progress. We've used the results from the survey of likely voters conducted last year by Y2 Analytics to set messaging goals for this year and beyond. One of the findings that came from that survey was an understanding that we have focused a lot on reaching out and messaging to our families, but less so to the broader community. So knowing that the survey showed that, we have worked to expand our reach to broader community members, not just to our families in our school district. We've developed a strategic approach to highlight employee and student achievements, and I hope that you feel like you've seen that through our social media and through the number of recognitions that have been brought to board meetings this year. In progress is establishing a quarterly communications council to increase communication between our district and stakeholders. And let me tell you a little more about that. What I'm envisioning is a group of community leaders, starting out small, like 5 to 7 groups to start with, including some folks with Salt Lake City from the mayor's office, and then other nonprofits whose target audience is similar to ours. The goal for this is twofold. 1, to expand our reach through these partners. This worked really well during COVID, but we've moved away from that because it hasn't been as critical, but we really want to leverage those partnerships again in this way. For example, if during COVID we saw that our reach, especially in our West Side communities and to families who speak other languages, they were harder to reach, but maybe they were receiving support from Neighborhood House. And so keeping the leaders at that organization in the loop was helpful in us getting critical information to our community members. So that's the idea. So it's to help expand our reach and also to build these partnerships. We can be good partners too. So it's not just us taking, but we hope it'll be a mutually beneficial relationship. And I will keep you apprised of that. So related to our related to this goal under Y2 for Y2 Analytics to develop that plan, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about that. In my department, this is the mission that we follow. This is what we believe our role is: to gather and provide useful, helpful, and accurate information to our stakeholders, to share the good things happening in our district and our schools, to celebrate our students and our staff, and to engage all the other stakeholders, our parents, our elected officials, our employees, decision makers, everyone who has a stake in this district in support of our schools. This plan was created to support the strategic plan for student achievement, and it was created to guide our work through the 28-29 school year. It's a working document like the strategic plan, and so it'll be updated as we have more data and as we see things changing in our priorities. Part of that also included creating a master annual calendar. It's been really helpful. What we did is spent last year tracking, okay, what month of the year is it when national merit finalists are announced, and oh right, the PAMPST is always at this time of year. That's helped us to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity to recognize our educators and our students. We stay pretty busy just even tracking the recognitions, and as we've gone through the year, we've found a few gaps, and now we've added them, and we'll be on top of that for next year. We have a little hashtag that we've been using, Excellence in Action, when we highlight our staff achievements, so keep an eye out for that. And then you can see the graphic there is a screenshot of our social media post from earlier this month, and you'll notice the little red at the top with the little tab that says Excellent in Action, so you'll be seeing that more and more as we continue to highlight our staff achievements. This is also helpful to establish traditions, and some of these traditions are highlighting these achievements. So we always, it feels like always, maybe not 100%, but it feels like we very frequently have finalists among our staff and even our students for some of the most prestigious awards in the state and even in the country. And this tradition of excellence, we want to make sure our community is aware of it, that we celebrate not just in our schools and maybe at an assembly, but that the broader community is aware and recognizes that these are educational experts. These are influential people. It was really neat, for example, when National Board certified teachers were highlighted at the Capitol, there was a photo taken of the leadership of the state affiliate of that group, and all 4 of those teachers are Salt Lake City educators. And I mean, what more do I need to say about that? Yes, exactly. Staff and student recognition. So last year, we tracked and we highlighted students 26 times on social media and staff members 31 times on our social media. This year, as of a week ago, we had 21 student recognitions and 29 on social media. And again, this will increase because we're only partway through the year. I had predicted last week that we would have surpassed these numbers by the time of today. I didn't check, but if we aren't there today, we'll be there soon. And one thing I do want to share is that this year we have added a team member, a marketing supervisor to our marketing specialist, I apologize, to our team. That has increased our bandwidth significantly, in the raw number of people and manpower hours, but because the individual we hired is talented and brings a lot to our team. And I want to thank the board for approving that because it has expanded our capacity to do this work. One example, last year, these 26 recognitions for students and 31 for staff, a lot of them were reshares. It's hard to get to every school and be everywhere all the time. We do our best, but it is difficult. And so a lot of these highlights were reshares of a post from a school rather than us being there, taking our own photos, creating our own content, building those relationships, and we've been able to do that. I think almost every one of these, Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, but 100%? Just about 100% of these are our own posts. So that has made a big difference. And I appreciate the work that my team has done to help broaden that reach. I mentioned earlier our mission, and I want to break down into the three parts. So we maintain positive relationships, we elevate the perception of our district, and we build trust. So a few of the ways that we've worked to build trust with our students. again, benefiting from this increase in FTE, we've been able to leverage Emma to build relationships with our student body officer groups. Our goal is to expand that, but that was a good place to start. She's been working on the Dignity campaign with our student body officers, and they are working on producing some of their own content. And then Emma's working to highlight the events that those student leaders are creating. Another example is the RAM-FAM series of speakers that's led by student leaders. At Highland High School, they saw an opportunity, an opportunity gap. There are students who naturally are drawn to things like student government, of course, but there were other students who had a lot of potential for leadership opportunities, and the school created this program to help give those students that leadership opportunity, and they've been able to bring in really notable speakers, former Congressman Ben McAdams, other folks to speak to the Highland student body. And we've been able to highlight the work that they're doing. Positive relationships with families. One thing that you may have noticed, I hope, is that our website looks a little bit different this year. And thank you to the superintendent for her support of us moving forward with that, of course. You will see a cleaner homepage. You will see icons that are, here, I'll give you a little snapshot here. So you'll see these icons but for paying for meals, bus routes, Parent Square. We are trying to make sure that families have as much information as easily available as possible. And so with Sam and his team, their help, we identified the clicks, the pages that were getting the most clicks, right? And it's these pages. Parents want to know where their kid's bus route is, or they want to know how to pay for meals. They want to know how the Safe UT app works. These are the things that we prioritized as icons on the homepage. And that the icons are, I mean, they're cute, they're visually helpful, but also helpful for families who maybe don't speak a particular language to see, okay, bus, that must be where I can find bus info. I do want to point out and remind our community again that on the bottom left corner of our website, there's the default is English, and if folks click on that, they'll be able to select the language of their choice. Most of the top languages that our families speak are available on that translation function. And then another change, small but it makes a difference, you'll see in those two headers there are now two in different colors just to help people find information more easily. Parent Square, we've rolled out that, hold on, I'll talk about the website more in a second. We've rolled out this new platform, Parent Square, and my team did a great job at not just rolling it out, but really giving parents the context for this. This platform is here because we want to make things easier for you. We want to centralize communication. We want every school to be using this so that you only have to learn one platform no matter what grade your student is in or what school in the district they attend. If a parent has 5 kids in the district and they're all at different schools, it's still one platform for them to receive information. We've provided professional development for administrators, teachers, school office professionals, and we will continue to do that this summer. To help grow the usage of this platform. And with the recent reorg that the board approved, the translation coordinator has been added to our department, and even in the short time that he's been part of our team, we've already identified and we're working to close some of the disparities and integrate services better for our families and for our students. I also have been working with Bob and the rest of our team this year and apologies for the folks, Bob is our translation coordinator. So we've been working on a year-long project of conducting kind of an informal assessment of our efforts to communicate with families at the school level. So having Mr. Munch on our team has been beneficial in helping us to make sure, okay, we know from the data that these are the languages spoken at these schools. Are those the languages we're actually providing services in, or are there languages that aren't being used? Or where can we make sure that we're aligning our resources with what data is showing us that our families are needing? So it's been really helpful already. Okay, more on the website redesign. So if you scroll below those icons, you'll see a Did You Know section. This is where we're highlighting our staff and student achievement. So if you want to, you're tired of the doom scrolling, hop onto the website, go to that Did You Know section and see what's been going on lately with students and staff. Our calendar is now a lot easier to see there on the right. And then below that Did you know section, we have our Why SLCSD. We really wanted, again, to provide information not just to our families, but really to the community at large. So someone who maybe is new to the area, or they've got a 2-year-old and they're looking ahead for opportunities for their child to be educated, they can go here and click on any one of these and find out great things about our district. We have a rich history. We have world-class teachers. We provide a launchpad to success. We're leading in student growth. Feel free to, again, when you get tired of the doom scrolling, to take a look here and read about how incredible the opportunities are for students. There's a lot that's going on, and we're excited for more opportunities to highlight that. One way is through coming website redesign later in the summer. Sam is leading a team through the RFP process right now to look for a website vendor. It's, that time where contracts expire and you make sure you're keeping the right person involved in that. So our hope is to roll that out beginning of the next school year. Okay, parent school rollout, we chatted about that, but just again, parents use it, everyone. Positive relationships with community members. We really worked on this through the bond. We launched a website to keep the community informed, and we recently launched a second page to keep our community apprised of project updates. And we'll continue to keep that up to date. As you know, because you're part of these efforts too, we work with our elected officials through the session, interim, and legislative breakfast. And we had a really great event highlighting our first female school board member earlier this year. With community leaders, the communications council piece is in progress, but I am hopeful that will add another dimension to our community outreach. Elevating our perception, the public's perception of our district. Another website related thing, but it's taken a lot of time, and I appreciate the effort my team's put into this, but we've been working to review department websites to make sure that information that needs to be easily available is easily available, and supporting district programs in their marketing efforts as well. Mentioned these already, we'll keep going. One way we're working on building that trust and transparency is through our school emergency alerts. When something happens in one of our schools, we work to get a notification out as quickly as possible, even if we don't have all the information, letting parents know, hey, our school is on hold right now. We'll follow up in an hour with more information. The more we can communicate, the more the trust grows with our parents. And then again, bond communications. We've also added, again, through this, through the new website, we've added the opportunity for folks who are not parents in the district to sign up to receive district newsletters, something that we weren't doing before. So again, just working to really build that capacity to reach out to the broader Salt Lake community. And I have come to the end of my presentation, but I want to thank you again for the resources that you've been willing to put into our department to help us to broaden our reach to families. We hope to continue to show you good results. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Andre. Any questions? Ashley?
Yeah, this question is not actually, it's a springboard from the family school partnerships highlighted, but it's probably best directed to the superintendent. We've had some elementary schools where administrators have discouraged events with families, and when those concerns have been raised, impacted teachers have been given a variety of reasons why they're not allowed to operate programs for families after school. And one example, that it was a very false claim that the district had disallowed these events due to concerns about ICE. So I'm hoping we can explain for a minute why administrators don't seem to be on a uniform page about family school partnerships when we're highlighting the really positive aspects of family school partnerships right now.
I think we'll have to look into that one. That's the first I've heard of it, so it'd be helpful to have that information on the follow-up.
I have one more thing. As James went through the community partnership list, I wanted to thank one group that wasn't in that list, which is parents. Because we talked a lot about parents earlier in the presentation, but not all communities in need are lucky to have a CLC, although many wish that they had one because the work that everyone does in CLCs is so important. And in those communities that do not have a CLC, specifically at Slicksy Bryant, it's often parents stepping up to run those food pantries and make sure the students are taken care of, including a large number of families from Precinct 3. So given the nature of the pillar, I wanted to say I appreciate all those celebrations, but also want to acknowledge the parents filling in those gaps in areas where we don't yet have a CLC.
I agree 100% with you. I think our parents are incredible. I work very close with Slixie Bryant, and I want you to know how much we appreciate their efforts and most importantly, the parents. A lot of the work that we do, not just at the CLCs, but when we look at the high schools, they have a school family resource specialist that work with us, and we visit with them and meet with them quite often. As far as elementary schools, we're always encouraging. We just had 2 weeks ago a meeting with principals and counselors and social workers to make sure that we engage parents in as far as participation, because a lot of them are volunteering. They come to the schools and they deserve to be recognized. Thank you for bringing that.
Any other questions? Amanda?
I don't have questions, more comments and gratitude, I guess. One, I wanted to emphasize my gratitude for just the amount of detail you both went into in dissecting these pillars. It brings a lot of detail that most of us don't probably ever see. So we can more fully appreciate the amount of work that you and your teams are putting into this. James, I have not had an ample opportunity or appropriate opportunity to express my gratitude for all that SLEF has done. So to you and all of the SLEF team who really go out of your way to invite ways to provide for the community, for the families, for the students, just a huge, huge thank you, because you're continually asking, what can we do? What can we do? And it's really our lack of imagination, it seems, because you're always willing to step in. So I just want to sincerely thank you and your team for that, because it's priceless. You did mention in one of your slides, I guess this is the question, that you completed you provided PD for the admin highlighting services available. Was that for all of the administration or?
So, this is a conversation I've had with Dr. Grant. We want to be able to provide ongoing training bi-monthly throughout the year for school administrators. So what we did is we invited them for basically coffee and donuts, and they came in and brought in either a social worker or counselor, and we did a training on how to access the resources, but we're going to do it ongoing. I think the biggest feedback I received from the board is communication, making sure that all of our resources are accessible, that all of our documents are in the district document center, and then constantly informing, because we have new counselors, new social workers, principals, and I think they need to know what we have available for them. And you've also given us some feedback on that, because that's how I got to meet Heather Brown, I believe, and others, parents who want to know what the district can do and the foundation. Is just based on, I think we need to do ongoing support in the mornings, in the evenings, so they understand how to access that.
Yeah, precisely, because you don't know what you don't know, and facilitating that conversation so people can really utilize all that you've got to offer is fabulous. And then just, I guess, a request, a comment, website looks a lot better. I see it. Thank you for all that hard work. And a request with social media posts or things in general for the visually impaired community. If you can do an alt text type embed in the images or an image description, if you don't already, so that if they're a visually impaired individual is trying to access this stuff, then that describes what's happening in that image. It's something that they would be grateful for.
Thanks. I believe we do that.
I'll go back and edit if there are missing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for flagging that. I should have flagged also, when we were going through the RFP process for the platform that turned out to be Parent Square, I asked district parents if they would support us in testing it out. We wanted to make sure that parents would actually use, and we wanted their input beforehand. And Board Member Longwell, as a parent at that point, was one of the parents who was willing to lend us time and feedback to select this platform. So sorry for missing that shout out before, but thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Charlotte or, oh, James?
Yeah, just, I didn't want to forget, just like Yandris mentioned, there are several people here. We can't do this alone, this kind of work alone. So my biggest ask to the board is that when you hear something, let me know immediately. I want to be responsive. We owe it to our kids, to our families. And then most importantly, I can't do this without my team. They're all back here. Jeanette and everyone, SLEF team, CLCs, and the different directors, the department directors. I'm gonna tell you, they ask for something. If it's about kids, it's our business. And so I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Appreciate you for giving us the time to share this.
Oh, I'd like to ask one.
Yeah.
Just the on-demand service, James, that you've created with UTA and those remarkable numbers of usage of the UTA passes that we do in partnership with the city and UTA. On-demand is for a certain sector of the city, right?
Yes.
So it's for the west side that is maybe not served as well with regular bus routes or times.
Exactly.
But people can call from an east side location and be dropped off or be picked up there, is that right?
The way it works is anybody can access on demand if they're west of 300 west and all the way to 17th north and 2100 south.
Okay.
And so if it's kind of tricky because it's not like Uber, but they have a stop nearby within a block to 2 blocks, and so they can just make a phone. It's actually on the app, and they request where to be picked up, at what time, and then it gives them 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever that may be, and then it takes them to the location on the west side. So if somebody, let's say they're at West High School, and they've taken the bus from the east side to West High School, but they want to go to Northwest and they want to take on demand, they can do that. They can meet them close to the closest stop at West. They'll take them to the closest, the drop off to Northwest is about a half a block away from middle school. One thing so that's on demand.
So you have to start and end
Mhm.
in that west
In
side
that west-
quadrant area, okay.
But I want to say thank you to the city because recently under a lot of the feedback we received from Rose Park and that community, UTA only used to go to North Temple. And then our kids would have to walk all the way to Northwest Middle School from 6 North. There wasn't a bus that would take them all the way to the school. We negotiated this year to be able to have a route that goes all past Northwest Middle School all the way to North Salt Lake, and now the kids are going to be able to have access. And also UDOT's in the process of putting a sidewalk. If you go from 6 North to Northwest, that is dangerous. I mean, but they are working on that. But that was a lot of pressure from students, families, parents really were very vocal about that. And so starting April, they're going to start the process to providing those services for our kids. So thank you. And I know some of you are quiet about this, but I know you had something to do with it as well. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? James, Yandri, thank you. I've also seen a lot of these improvements, so thank you for all your work. And Yandri, I don't know if you have to go too far. Our next agenda item is a legislative session recap.
You know what? I'm going to stand for this one. I'm going to mix it up. Yes. All right, and I gave him a heads up beforehand, but I for financial questions may tap in our business administrator, Alan Kersley. I don't have a PowerPoint for this, but I did want to highlight a few bills. We tracked a lot of bills this session. I will not be going over every single one of them. But I did want to point out a few that will impact our district and point out a few budget highlights as well. So this year, the budget was just under $30 billion for the whole state. It's down from previous years. There was no COVID funding this year. There were tighter revenue projections, so they were calling it a socks and underwear year, so less money to go around. Possibly for that reason, we are seeing a WPU increase of 4%, which is the minimum that they statutorily have to implement to keep up with inflation and enrollment growth. I'm going to tell you a few other things that the legislature spent money on for this coming year. They allocated $471 million in one-time projects from the the Economic Stabilization Restricted Account. $47.4 million ongoing was allocated to boost teacher salaries by $1,400. I do want to point out, I think Alan would support me pointing this out, that includes benefits and such, and so teachers will not see that full $1,400 amount. It's closer to, what did you say, like $800-900? 1,000, okay, all right, better than I was thinking. Along with that, there was a one-time allocation of $45 million to boost the salaries of education support professionals, and apologies, that's more a bonus because it's one time, and that amount is $1,000 per education support professional. There was also a $65 million allocation one time to fund House Bill 447. It was a bill sponsored by Speaker Schultz to give grants to LEAs who want to create a Catalyst Center program. It's a Catalyst Center. The Catalyst Center is located in Davis School District. It's a program that helps students get training in workforce skills and really CTE pathways that can lead them to college, to good careers, or even beyond that. $27 million was allocated for the first credential program that focuses on making sure students are graduating work ready, that they have some sort of credential that they can go right into the workforce or go on to further education. $25 million in one-time money was allocated to meet school safety needs for school districts. I do want to point out that the original request was for $130 million, but again, socks and underwear year. Along with that, there was $10 million allocated one time for a statewide student information system, and $5 million one time for House Bill 42, a bill that provides emergency funding to schools that mid-year see an increase in students whose first language is not English. All right, so let's chat income tax bills. This is the fifth year that we've seen an income tax cut from the legislature. And the bill included a 1% reduction in the tax rate, both for individuals and for corporations. It also expanded that bill, House Bill 106, expanded the child tax credit, an item that was kind of added at the last minute. And again, I mentioned this is the fifth year we've seen a tax reduction, an income tax reduction. This equates to about a $45 savings for the average Utah family. Along with that, Senate Bill 71 raises the threshold for seniors who don't pay income taxes from $75,000 to $90,000. So more seniors will now not have to pay income taxes. But the other side of that is that reduces the money coming in from income tax, which funds public education, higher education, and some social services. So trade-offs. Okay, I'll start with tax increment financing. We talked about Senate Bill 23, that was really a cleanup bill from last year, and Senate Bill 26, which started out, pretty low key. By the end, turned into the bill that allows Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County to fund a renovation, a downtown revitalization that includes possibly renovating the Salt Palace and maybe a Bravenel Hall as well, close to $1 billion for both of those projects. And it does it through tax increment financing. The money, what tax increment financing means for our community members who aren't familiar with that term is that it's funded from future tax growth. So future property taxes from new developments will be funneled towards these projects. In any of these arrangements, the school district is always the largest taxing entity, the largest stakeholder of the taxing entities. That means that some of that future revenue will go towards the projects rather than coming to a school district where it typically would have gone. All right, so that one. Okay, Senate Bill 306 allows Salt Lake County to dip into revenue from existing transportation taxes to pay for part of this Salt Palace remodel as well. So it's not entirely being funded through that tax increment finance. Senate Bill 33 impacts venues that, cities and counties that want to remodel venues in advance of the 2034 Olympics. And again, it creates tax increment financing zones to do that. We continue to see this mechanism becoming more and more popular. And their goal is to capture that property tax increment to be able to renovate these venues. Any misses there, Ellen, on these? Okay, thanks. Senate Bill 336 relates to the Utah Fair Park Area Investment and Restoration District modifications. Very long name. What it does is it made changes to the Utah Fair Park area, again, another area where we're going to see tax increment financing. And then, while we're just talking about taxes, there's Senate Bill 37. This bill, really what it does is reroute school property taxes. Under this bill, the money that's paid into the state basic school levy, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, Ellen, would go to the state's unrestricted general fund, and then the state would pay us back the same amount. So it's a way to channel property tax money that would go to school districts, put it somewhere else to be used for something else besides public ed, but they're saying we'll get back the same amount. It's a little bit sneaky, and the disclosure won't be on our community members' tax, oh my gosh, the paper that you get mailed, the tax notice, thank you. Okay. More finance bills. House Bill 344 related to school fees. Short version, what this bill requires is for school districts to provide a path to earn required credits for students that will be completely free, no fees. So that means that I might really want to be in the orchestra, but the orchestra has a fee, but I can take a music theory class instead and still fulfill that graduation requirement. So there just has to be an option that doesn't include a fee as students are moving towards graduation. Another really big appropriation this year was $40 million for the Utah Fits All scholarships. The bill this year did place restrictions on how that can be used. For example, it limits, you can't buy season passes with that anymore, limits extracurricular and PE activities. And we'll get into two human resources bills now. House Bill 124 restricts school districts from selling or transferring employee information, and also prevents districts from requiring certain technologies on the private devices of employees. That also means that if that technology is required, that the district would then provide a device for that app to be used, or that other technology. And then there was an official change in statute to what we call our school personnel, who are support staff. They are now officially called education support professionals. So typically the folks we would refer to as classified employees or paraprofessionals. So they are education support professionals. They are professionals, and we rely on them to support our students. Under child nutrition, two bills. One is House Bill 100, which our school board already does. So way to lead the way, flagship school board in the state. It expands access to free meals for K-12 students, and it does it by taking the students who would qualify for reduced price lunches and funding those reduced price lunches. That's something that our Board of Education committed to years and years and years ago, so we're already doing that in this district. And the allocation for that is $2.5 million to expand that program. There's another bill that I know was a bit concerning to our child nutrition director, House Bill 402. It prohibits certain foods. So it's ingredients like certain food dyes and certain preservatives, some ingredients that are not necessarily great for students, but the reason that this bill was concerning, although the end goal is good, is that it will cost it will cost money to transition to this new way of providing meals for students. There are some exceptions for this, for example, concessions at a school event, or the birthday treats that mom and dad send in with the kiddos, or a teacher. There was concern from teachers. Look, I keep a drawer of granola bars at my desk for kids who need something. So a teacher can ask parents at the beginning of the year if they would allow their student to consume foods that do have some of these ingredients, and the teacher would still be able to provide that if they wanted to. Okay, under grandma, big change to grandma this year. Senate Bill 277 created the Government Records Office and replaced the State Records Committee with the director of that office. So currently there's a 7-person committee that reviews these records requests and appeals, and that's changed significantly. This bill stemmed from just an overload of grandma requests that are coming into our state agencies and public institutions. School safety, of course, we saw similar changes to the what we need to implement. Everything from building and safety standards changing to specifying more what the window protection requirements are, adding members to the school security task force and the public education advisory board. It'll now include the higher ed commissioner as they expand some of these requirements into our college and university campuses. And interestingly, it authorizes a school safety foundation. So that would be a nonprofit agency that could help raise funds to offset some of the expenses that will be required by the state. All right, let's chat now about curriculum, instruction, and other bills that impact the classroom. House Bill 77, Flag Display Amendments, prohibits the display of pride flags and other non-governmental flags in public buildings and schools. So it's not just for schools, this impacts City Hall, county buildings, state agencies. I do want to clarify, I had questions from a few of our schools about country flags. Those are still allowed. A lot of our schools are proud of the heritage and culture that our families bring to our district and have flags on display that represent that, and we will still be able to do that. The bill does include a list of allowable flags, and what is being prohibited is flags. So a sticker, a lanyard, a button, a pin, those things are still fine under this legislation. House Bill 191 impacts the use of instructional packets for high school credit. It allows LEAs to give credit for courses completed through packets if they meet certain requirements, and the state board has to review and approve those packets. Another curriculum bill, House Bill 233, will henceforth prohibit an LEA from allowing entities that perform elective abortions to provide instruction or materials in our schools. That would impact some of our health classes in our school district. The first credential program I mentioned a little earlier, but it's just, it puts in a new system to give students industry-recognized credentials, setting them up for applying to college or for jumping into the workforce, whatever their path may be. House Bill 381 changes the current 0.5 credit requirement for high school graduation for U.S. government to 1 credit civics course. So just a minor change there. Senate Bill 170, this bill is sponsored by Senator Escamilla. It relates to how we use seclusion as an intervention in our schools. It codifies what's current practice. It wasn't codified, and she felt very strongly that this should be written into state code, that we do not use this method except in very, 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 very limited situations. Senate Bill 178, devices in public schools. It prohibits using devices during class time. That includes cell phones, smartwatches, tablets, all devices just generally. It does allow LEAs to craft their own policy. So you could formulate something a little different as long as it complied with the minimum of that class time prohibition. There's another bill that protect students' reasonable expectation to privacy. So, for example, they would not be forced to change, like for a PE class, change in front of their peers, that we would have to provide a designated space for privacy for those students. Collective bargaining. I know you are familiar with House Bill 267, which removes collective bargaining rights from public employees. The bill faced opposition from police, firefighters, teachers, and even some non-public unions who stood in solidarity with their public counterparts. There's an effort to hold this to a referendum, and we will see how that turns out. That would be on the 2026 ballot. Okay, so I have one miscellaneous bill and then I'm done. House Bill 281, Health Curriculum and Procedures Amendments. This bill requires our school therapists to have written consent from a parent before they meet with a child. In general, that's what happens, except for maybe in a unique circumstance, like there's a tragedy that occurs and a counselor would meet with a student right then. And in that permission, parents can list the topics that they're okay being discussed and topics that the therapist should not address with their child. The exception to that, that was inserted because of the pushback the sponsor got, is that they can address those prohibited topics if it would compromise the student's safety, or if there's a mandatory reporting obligation, like if the therapist suspects child abuse. Again, I was not going over every bill, but I did want to highlight some of the ones that will impact us in the classroom. Let me know if you have any questions.
Ashley?
Yes.
I have two questions.
Yes.
So Senator Plum, late in the session, advanced an amendment to HB 237, which was the bill banning Planned Parenthood from instructing in schools. And the purpose of the amendment was to make it so that clinics, like we offer in partnership with the University of Utah, would no longer be prohibited as they were under the original bill.
Yes.
Have we discussed at all any of the legal implications of HB 237 with our clinics and partnerships schools may also have with LDS Hospital?
No, we have not done that yet. Our legal counsel, our general counsel, Ms. Kendall prepares every year a list of the bills that will impact certain areas of our district, and so I'm no doubt that she will provide the necessary guidance to those entities. But thank you. I apologize for missing that
Oh,
amendment.
no, it's okay.
Very
It's a
important
big
change.
list of bills, so I just wanted to ask. And then there are some other bills that impact day-to-day instruction that are awaiting the governor's signature, like HB 108, which requires firearm instruction.
Yes,
Multiple
104.
times during a student's educational experience. So that's only one of curricular bills. So how will, and this is probably a question for the superintendent, any particular discussions on changes to curriculum reach the board purview, if at all?
I'm wondering if at all. Which ones are you thinking of that we would bring to the board for a change?
Well, I'm wondering when things would be required potentially to be approved as we like routinely approve all kinds of other curriculum and changes, or we appoint committees to review different things. So there are multiple curriculum bills. I'm wondering which may reach the board, if at all, and the answer might be about the timeline. The state board needs to rewrite the rule before this, and we wouldn't expect to see firearms instruction curricula brought to the board for X amount of time, and then it would go on a consent agenda. I'm just curious how curricular changes will reach us.
If they require the board approval, they would be in that process, but I don't know enough about all of the curricular bills. Dr. Hall, if you do, and what might be facing us that way, and which ones would be ones that we would just work with schools to implement, and which ones would require a particular curriculum on our part.
Generally, the only curriculum that comes up to the board for adoption is curriculum that we adopt district-wide. So things like, as you have been on the Human Sexuality Committee, those presentations that we have approved, they don't come individually to the board. They're approved by the board at the end of the year. That's in statute. At this time, there isn't something in statute that would say if we choose our gun control education, that would need to be approved by the board. So that one, it's sort of like maybe some of our supplemental materials or videos or, different things that we use to supplement instruction. This would be when or if it is implemented that, if it goes through all the way to the end of the row, then this would be considered a supplement, and generally those are not approved by the board.
Let me follow up too on what Yandri was saying about the review that General Counsel Kendall undertakes. So she provides, we look at the master list, and each one of those bills is assigned an owner who is then responsible for making sure that that's implemented in the district. And we can follow up with. So that is our way to make sure that we're in compliance with the bills and responding to them and making them part of our district practice as needed. So that will start to happen soon. Yeah, most of these have a May 7th at the earliest implementation date on these bills that tend to come our way.
Any other questions for Yonder? We got 1 minute left according to my clock before we gotta start our time certain public comment period. Thank you, Yandri. We'll go ahead and hang out till 7:15 and invite anybody from the team to be up to speak to either one of these two items tonight. You wanna wait for a minute, Mike?
Oh, sorry.
We're really close. I mean, you can come sit up. You're already standing, you know?
You said, we'll just wait.
All right, the floor is yours, Mike. We will start with public input on the fee schedule first. Okay. And please keep in mind that we will still honor our 3 minutes that we honor for a regular request to speak in this process tonight. Is there anybody here to speak to public input on the draft 2025-26 student fee schedule? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to our second item, which is public input on Nibley Park grade level reconfiguration. Mike?
Good evening. Dr. Grant, members of the Board of Education. As a representative who represents the largest employee group in the district, we have significant concerns over the reconfiguration process of Nibley Park. The educators and parents most affected by these changes have not been included in most of the discussions, which is troubling as we transition to a new reality without the shared governance model that mandates input from stakeholders. I'm concerned this will become the new reality, which is not the Salt Lake City District way. A major issue is the timeline. Staffing reports were due nearly 2 weeks ago, and the building was staffed for the K-8 based on the district projections. Hillside was also staffed on projections that did not account for potentially new students. Making this decision now for the next school year will require rushed staffing adjustments, impacting displaced educators' rights as outlined in the written agreement. Additionally, Hillside will need to adjust their master schedule and potentially hire more staff, which means revisiting their staffing report as well. In the last meeting, concerns about meeting the basic middle school program were raised, and I understand that, but there weren't other alternatives discussed, like shared staffing, bringing folks in to meet those needs for at least a year so that we can make a timely decision that doesn't impact parents in such a critical way. Families who chose Nibley Park for their students will be negatively impacted if this option is taken away at this late stage. And as Board Member Longwell pointed out, this can be very disruptive to families' planning. I understand the G5 policy is under review, and I hope that the review considers the importance of timely decision-making so that families and employees have the time they need to make decisions that are in their best interest. I was hoping you'd already had the discussion about Nibley Park, so we'll see where that goes, but thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anybody else here to speak to the Nibley Park grade level reconfiguration item? Okay, we will move along to our discussion agenda. Thank you, Yandri, for your legislative recap again. The first item in our discussion agenda is the G5 administrative procedures. It's my understanding that the policy subcommittee relooked at G5 based on some suggestions and recommendations. And so now it is our opportunity to ask those types of questions either from the policy subcommittee or from our general counsel who's here this evening as well. I don't know, Superintendent, is Ms. Kendall joining us this evening?
Yes, thank you. So the G5 policy has been on the agenda before, and we have the conversation in writing that happened with board member Longwell had asked for some questions to be answered. We wanted to put this again on the agenda with those questions in hand. So you've received the answers that the policy committee had to those questions that were raised. And so you have a redlined version of that G5 policy in front of you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Is anybody from the policy subcommittee willing to speak to these changes or any of the discussion that you may have had in committee?
I think I'm more ready to answer questions than necessarily like have a discussion. It's been a couple of weeks, but I can do my best.
Are there any questions for Ms. Kindle or policy subcommittee members?
May I?
Amanda?
I guess I don't necessarily have questions, so to speak. The memorandum you sent was very helpful to give context to the current version. I do see some of the implemented changes. So thank you for considering and making some adjustments and recognizing the impacts to the families and the teachers. Ultimately, I still strongly struggle with it. I mean, I think that I recognize there's been a lot of work for the G5. I don't discount it. I think that the G5 is currently structured to give a district and administrators like the most latitude on making decisions instead of ensuring that things are done in a timely manner to help the teachers that will be displaced to be able to find their new positions and a better timeline to help families adjust and prepare. And I think that the sticking to these very loose is not the right term, but district-friendly timelines and not family and teacher-friendly timelines is a disservice to the community. And I strongly am very upset that the grade level reconfigurations has a different timeline. So where I'm really standing with this is I would rather, it's uncomfortable for me to have this discussion about the G5 at the same time as the Nibley Park conversation. I don't think we should be doing that at the same meeting. It's does not feel good.
Thank you, Amanda. Ashley?
Yep, I have a question and then a comment. And the first question is that the 60-day boundary adjustment question has kind of come to all of our inboxes, I think, which is how could a family be expected to have a school closure and then wait 2 months basically to know what their potential boundary changes are? And my question for our general counsel is that sometimes a law allows something like up to 60 days, but it doesn't prohibit something like options that include boundary changes being presented. So is that a distinction that would make sense here and an example of why that 60 days may need to be utilized but would not be commonly utilized?
Absolutely. I think, as I tried to point out in the memorandum, or in the response to questions, I mean, it was built along the timeline that's set out in the state law, which is that if a lot of different proposals were submitted to a board, for example, of you could close these schools, you could close these schools, you could close these schools, right? Like if it was multiple options that the district didn't really have an idea of which way its board was going to vote, it would be very hard to redo boundaries based on all the variety of options that could happen, right? So in those types of scenarios, I think that's why the legislature decided to give a 60-day window following school closures, right? But in most circumstances, if you were looking at closing one school or two schools, it's going to be very easy to draw a boundary map at the same time you're proposing school closure. So it wouldn't necessarily always take 60 days, or, you know, it might be done at the same time. It could be done much earlier. Boundary, you know, school closures don't even need to happen up right at December 31st. Clearly, most boards aren't going to meet on New Year's Eve, right? And they could make that decision in November, and then you only have 60 days. I mean, the timelines are very flexible. How this administrative procedure was built was simply using the timelines that are set out in statute, so that we do have flexibility. But again, we added language that's always that we should be making these decisions as far enough in advance as possible. But it does give that option of, if, you know, the district decided we're recommending these schools for closure, and then the board decided not to close those schools, the district, if it simply had not prepared for that possibility of whatever the vote was, would have a certain number of days to restructure boundaries. I don't think in most instances it's going to be necessary or it's going to take that long. But simply moving forward, I don't even know when the next process is, so this is for future boards to decide if the next round of school closures comes up in 10 years or 7 years or whatever, right? It's just really built along what's outlined in statute. But again, I think everyone's intention is to provide families with as much notice as possible, and understanding that typically this would not be necessary, that 60 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it explains that part to me. And I think one thing that is helpful to also remind the community asking the question is that for us to go 20 years without recommending school closure is very abnormal, and that in a routine process, some of these more extenuating parts of the policy are not commonly utilized, or only utilized in, you know, as you point out, an extreme case. In an unrelated comment, I think that I was fully supportive of the way the procedures were written and felt like a lot of thought had been put into them, and I agree with many of the criteria, until the process for Nibley Park started. And I am now actually very concerned that the APs for grade level reconfigurations require kind of no study period or length of time. And one of the reasons I'm concerned by this is not only the discussion that's happening about Nibley Park, and more so the manner in which it's happening, but that it's reasonable to assume that a recommendation could come in the future for a potential restructure to K-5 that could impact substantially more schools. And I really hesitate to approve procedures that would allow that to happen without any kind of mandatory study period. I feel like more and more frequently, we're moving things through very quickly without requisite study. And based on the experience with Nibley Park, I'm not comfortable moving these recommendations forward without some type of study period for grade level reconfigurations.
Any other questions or comments for general counsel or for policy subcommittee members?
May I?
Yeah, we can start round
Thank
two.
you. Okay. And thank you, Ashley, for pointing out what you did on that reconfiguration. I would just add to it that the timeline on that reconfiguration should also be reconsidered when that's, assuming this does not pass tonight. And like I mentioned to you, I was on the cusp of just tabling it, but if counterparts feel like they want the opportunity to move it forward, I won't pull that card as much as it hurts. But if this does not pass tonight, then also relooking at that timeline on that reconfiguration, because that gives a lot more time to disrupt families and teachers' lives last minute and give less time for them to prepare for that change. So that's my extra 2 cents.
Dr.
What would you think is appropriate? I think giving some directions or ideas to policy subcommittee or others, if we're discussing this, what kinds of things do you think need to be done?
Well, essentially what I had proposed in the initial, I mean, the deadline on like the school closures is December 30th. Obviously, it was pointed out that we typically aren't having meetings that late. So based on that, let's move that deadline to November 30th. And then our school boundaries have to be changed no later than end of February, basically, end of January, instead of end of February, and then align with that. So in the school boundary policy itself, putting those deadlines in there to align with the school closure. So if we do a school closure November 30th, then we have 60 days for the boundary changes, which puts us at the end of January. So if we're doing a boundary realignment or on its own, then hard deadline is end of January, and then the realignment hard deadline is end of January. Basically make all of them a similar hard deadline, so that no matter what we're doing, if we're upending teachers' lives or students' lives, family lives, then whichever component of this G5 is playing out, we have a same hard deadline on all of them. And then that puts the pressure on the district, the board, et cetera, and paying attention to our agendas and how our meetings are playing out through the year to ensure that we're looking at the data quickly once we get our numbers in October. And really jumping in and seeing if we're having that discussion. We need to be moving quickly if we're gonna respect these families' lives and not cause more harm than good.
Can I make a comment just about that deadline being at the end of January? Just be cognizant of the fact that with the holidays, that probably takes out 2 weeks in the December month, right? That district staff wouldn't be able to work on those things. And so while I understand moving it up till the end of November with the holidays, that becomes problematic with those 2 weeks being gone.
Thank you, I agree with that, that's tough.
Seeing no other comment, I would entertain a motion to move this item to the action agenda.
I move that we move G5 administrative procedures to the action agenda.
Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
Yes, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Charlotte.
I'm sorry.
You want discussion?
Oh, no, this is to move it?
To move it.
That's fine, okay.
Charlotte, you first.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Amanda Long will know.
Mohammed, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
All right, that motion passes. We'll go ahead and take this back up when we get to the action agenda. The next item on our discussion agenda is the 2025-2026 student fee schedule. Come on back up, Ms. Kendall. Thank you.
I would just like to remind the board that per state law, the board policy, administrative procedures, and all the fee schedules need to be approved before the end of this month. And given that this is the only board meeting we have, that we would need approval tonight of those of the policy, administrative procedures, and the fee schedules. Although if the board had a specific direction for a change, that could be included in the motion, but they do need to be passed tonight, approved.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Any questions? We've talked about this a few times lately. Any questions, comments, concerns? Amanda?
I was just digging to it to look at it one more time before I opened my mouth and it wasn't there, but I'm pretty certain that the unified sports fees had the option for a banner. Is that correct?
That is correct. It should be on.
So, yeah, it should be on there. I'm pretty sure I saw it. So I just wanted to say thank you for making sure that was on there.
Of course.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll entertain a motion to move this item to the action agenda.
I move that we put the 25-26 student fee schedule on the action agenda.
It needs to be the policy and the administrative procedures as well.
Well, it doesn't say that on the agenda, does it? I reiterate that I would move the 25-26 student fee schedule, policies and administrative procedures to the action agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote. With myself, Nate Salazar, yes.
Amanda Longwell, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
That motion passes. We will revisit that. Our third item is the Nibley Park grade level reconfiguration. Dr. Grant, will you please introduce this to us?
Sure, we reposted to you the presentation that was done at the March 4th meeting on Nibley Park reconfiguration. As a reminder of what we talked about there, there was also the kind of open house or parent session at Nibley Park last week. I believe, Principal Green, there were about 10 families present and 6 teachers there, and appreciated board members being there as well to hear the concerns and ideas of the families and teachers at that meeting. I do want to say one piece about this that's important to recognize with Nibley Park is that it's not a magnet program. So a lot of the conversation at that open house or parent night was about trying to bring in more students to Nibley. Isn't there a way to grow the program? And as the enrollment has shown over 20 years, people have really been voting with their feet for 20 years to say, this isn't a program that the majority or consistently the majority of 6th graders want to move into. Typically, half to 1/3 of students are moving straight into middle school rather than going into the 7 and 8 there at Nibley. So the idea originally was not, again, a magnet program, and so it was meant to be a neighborhood K through 8 that would serve that neighborhood, the students within those boundaries. And as we've found, there are just not enough interested families to want to populate that program enough that we're able to provide the middle school program that was envisioned when it was created. And as we've noted as a district, and I think you've heard a lot from parents and teachers both ways, I think, on this, about from the community. There's a real mix of opinions on it. But as a district, I know that the principal feels that students would be better served in middle school. The area director feels that students would be better served in middle school. Certainly Dr. Taylor and I feel that students would be better served in middle school than they are in the program that we are able to provide there at Nibley Park. And so we, as a district, want to recommend that we reconfigure Nibley Park as a K-6 school this year. And that would start then in the fall. We believe that with HR and Logan Hall, you could confirm this, that we are just starting the placement of teachers into positions that are open as there have been enrollment changes in the district, and we need to maybe place some teachers in the same way these teachers would be there in that same pool up front and wouldn't lose out on opportunities that way. And we believe there is time to get this accomplished and to serve families. There are few enough families in a way that we could call each of them individually and help them work through a plan to get to middle school. So that is the district recommendation. And we have the team here that has been discussing this and appreciate to Janelle Rodriguez that you're here for representing Hillside, that can answer questions from the board if needed.
Any questions for Dr. Grant or the team from Nibley or Hillside?
I have a series of questions. Because the K-8 was discussed and passed by the board as an optional specialized program rather than a reconfiguration in the mid-2000s, Dr. Grant, can you explain why we're not following the process for optional specialized programs in this instance?
You stumped me. Glad to get that in a board meeting, thanks.
Also, Alan, can you share when Auxiliary Services was directed to remove the stoves from the cooking classroom for Nibley's 7th and 8th grade?
Nope, I am not familiar with that process. I don't know if Isaac knows anything about it. I think it was before his time. So no, I'm not aware of that. I don't have that information.
And as a follow-up to that, Dr. Grant, can you explain more generally why the 7-8 elective classrooms are no longer being used by 7th and 8th grade students in their pod at Nibley?
As I explained at the parent meeting that night, this all happened before anybody, I believe, in this room was here, though Dallin may have some. Dallin Miller, our area director, looks like he has an answer to that one.
The question about the stoves, those were taken out for a classroom, for a 5th and 6th grade DLI classroom.
So to reiterate, we closed a school and we moved a classroom in and we took away the elective classrooms that 7th and 8th grade students at Nibley were using as part of their middle school program.
Is that a question?
Is that what we did?
Say that one more time.
Did we close a school and require that ELP DLI classroom move to Nibley and then use the 7th and 8th grade electives classroom, taking away elective space from 7th and 8th grade students in the middle school program to house an ELP elementary school class?
No.
So the cooking class wasn't active at that time, and so we used it as a classroom instead. That's my understanding.
When we went and looked at the classroom, we brought our CT director in to look at what was in there. It wasn't being used. The classroom was being used more of a storage room.
Thank you. This just contradicts what teachers shared at the community event. My next question is to Dr. Grant or possibly Dr. Taylor. Can you let us know the timeline on which the electives calendar was changed by the current administration to functionally remove the past 7 years of practice for offering electives at Nibley's K-8?
So I can speak a little bit to that if somebody else would like to also join me. I remember when I met with the Nibley Park staff when digital studies became a middle school elective. And at that time, the 7th and 8th grade were in fact, so this is about 7 or 8 years ago, functioning as an elementary. And the discussion for pushing digital studies in was talked about in a number of minutes per day, not as a period or as a class, but that we might be able to put 12 minutes here or 7 minutes here as part of an elective or not elective, but more like a passing period or what's the word I want there? They were talking about it in terms of 12 minutes a day, which is not a full class. So it actually wasn't until this year that we had as many electives in place as a class. This is, I believe, the first year that digital studies has functioned as a class, and that we have had health function as a class and not just integrated into part of science, looking at the way schedules have been set up.
And CCA. So in the electives in previous years, we're also running as an elementary model. They were getting it once a week, like they were getting music and art and PE. So they weren't getting it like a middle school elective, which was daily. So if they, at one point, were getting a cooking class, it maybe was once a week. And it was based on teacher interest and teacher choice, not based on teacher endorsement at that time.
As a follow-up to that, if teachers do have a 1-8 license and they're teaching the electives in the manner they choose, are they violating any state statute or code for an appropriate middle school program?
That's an HR thing, and as Mr. Hall comes up, I will just say, One of the things that comes along with the endorsement is that review of the requirements for what is taught in that class. So that's always a piece when people are doing it by choice. The question is that choice reflective of the state standards that should be taught in that class?
Yeah, I think I need to understand Board Member Anderson's question a little bit more clearly. From what I understand, the base understanding is a Utah licensed teacher who's licensed in elementary is able to teach in an elementary model from grades K through 8. And so it would depend on whether the model for the Nibley Park 7-8 program is running in an elementary type model where it's a one-room schoolhouse model where one teacher teaches all subjects, or a secondary model which would be a traditional middle school where they have different teachers in teaching different subjects. And so if it is working in a secondary model, the teachers assigned to those classes would have to have particular content area endorsements for those pieces. Does that answer your question?
It does. So in other words, a person with an appropriate grade 1 through 8 license teaching an elective on their own schedule once a week does not violate anything in state requirements for 7th and 8th grade students.
Depending on the setup of the delivery model instruction.
Okay. My next question is, in the community meeting, Dr. Hall, you stated that we couldn't market some schools ahead of others in answering parent questions, but the open classroom K-8 model was allowed to push out multiple advertisements through Parent Square. Can you explain why we allowed one district K-8 to offer enrollment advertisements but not the other? In the same response, could you address why Clayton and Hillside are allowed to come to Nibley to market to 6th graders, but Nibley 7-8 is still not afforded any opportunity to share the programming at their school?
I'm going to ask Yandere Chatwin to address the first part of that with school advertising, as that has been her policy and administrative procedure.
Yes, so we give equal access to all our schools to advertise through those channels. Some don't choose to do that advertising and some do. So whenever we do get requests, we support schools in those efforts.
And I would add to that Hillside and Clayton have not always come to Nibley to recruit. In fact, I believe this is the first year that we've invited those principals to come and speak, as we've really looked at what students have available to them at Nibley and some of the areas where the middle school requirements for courses have not been met. Additionally, having Nibley Park recruit, it has always been, as the superintendent said, not a magnet school that would actively recruit for another program, or, if it were the DLI program, for instance, we do recruit into those as a magnet pull, but this was a neighborhood program that was really designed to have the neighborhood 7th and 8th graders attend 7th and 8th grade there, and if 100% of them did, then it would have given us the number that the district originally thought would be there, which is 150 students, which would have allowed us more FTE to run a complete middle school program, or perhaps not complete like the other schools, but at least meeting all of the state required core assignments.
I'll come back to that 150 number, but I do want to say, we keep saying the middle requirements were not being met, but they are being met based on the types of t-shirt licensure and the approved model by the board. And additionally, I'm confused because they were told in the community forum actively that they couldn't market, but now they're told they could market just if they knew who to ask. So it's pretty confusing, but I have some more questions and I want to use my 3 minutes. In our last meeting, Dr. Hall, you said there was no substantial difference in academic outcomes for K-8 students. Some constituents have shared that Data Gateway evidence shows 7th and 8th students at Nibley do have lower RISE scores, but some of the other publicly available testing data from the district shows Nibley cohorts in some cases have higher academic performance. You talked, Dr. Hall, in the past meeting about how there were other things that weren't captured by testing, which I agree. So I'm wondering if you can tell us the difference between AB and IB and concurrent enrollment for K-8 students compared to Hillside students, and also whether there's any substantial difference in student engagement among K-8 graduates in the fine arts, UHSAA sanctioned activities, or student clubs at Highland.
So I want to be clear that what I said in the previous meeting was that their high school outcomes in terms of graduation we're not different. Highland does a terrific job of making sure through their freshman success program that freshmen are brought into the school, and if they are not where they need to be, then Highland works to make sure that those pieces are okay. So long-term, Nibley Park students do integrate into the high school and in their core areas do as well as their peers at Highland. Do you want to speak to the other pieces? I have not personally looked at the IB or AP course taking rates for Nibley Park students.
I have not either. I have looked at their end of level data for RISE for the past few years compared to Clayton and Hillside. I can share that if you like. For 2024 in language arts and math, Hillside and Clayton were 51 and 54. Nibley Park was 15% proficient in math. Hillside and Clayton, 58 and 54. Nibley Park, 17. In science, Hillside and Clayton were 64 and 55. Nibley Park at 28. And that was 7th and 8th grade combined. That was all students. I can tell you students with disabilities and or MLLs if you'd like.
I think I've seen that on Data Gateway, so I'm gonna use my time to ask about a couple more things. And Dr. Hall, you recently mentioned that magical number of 150. That was brought up a lot of times in the community forum. But I can find no documentation in the establishment of Nibley, reports that Nibley made to the board, or any other board directive that ever gave the school community the idea they had to reach 150 students. Where is it documented that this number was expected, and how has it been shared with the school since 2007?
We actually found it in the original documents that went between the principals and the superintendent and school board in 2006 and 7. That was the number that both Nibley Park and Whittier had pointed toward making a 7-8 model work. After both programs had, they had been given the go-ahead for 7 and 8, then Whittier actually did not decide to ever go through with, they did not implement the model at that point. But in terms of calculations, in terms of the number of students that would be necessary to provide enough staff to do a middle school program, 150 students was the number that the district had said would be financially and fiscally responsible to run that complete middle school program.
Can you share those documents with the board, please?
I'd be happy to.
And I think I'm out of time, so I'll save my additional questions for the second round.
Amanda?
On one of board member, sorry, Ashley, I don't know her last name. Brain fart. The marketing thing, I do want to say that what I heard from the open school night was that the district does not market schools against each other. It didn't say that the schools couldn't market themselves, so that was what I heard whenever that was discussed. I've heard feedback from families saying they want to stay, they're happy with it. I've heard feedback from families saying this is harmful to the students, we should not continue this model. Same with teachers feeling very adamant that we should keep it, and teachers feeling very adamant that it's a disservice to the student population. Seeing some students just spiraling out of a lack of engagement and being challenged in options. And from what I understand, the building space, the elementary is running out of space with the elementary programs. So there wouldn't be a lot of empty space with this change that would give them the opportunity to grow into that. I do severely struggle with the way that this is coming out at this time, because a community member made this comment, and I feel similarly that a reconfiguration is essentially a school closure. We're closing a section of the building which takes teachers and students and families out of that school and moving them. So again, doing it at this timeline, I don't feel comfortable with. I do support the closure of the 7-8 program. I see that it is more harmful to the students than beneficial. And I know that we have other middle schools that can properly support students that need different educational opportunities and supports and dynamics. So that is not a question to me. It's more of how we roll this out, not pulling the Band-Aid off and saying, okay, everybody close up, even though it's the end of March and we're done. If we can look at a way to transition, grandfather it, I would be more open to that than just shutting it down black and white for the upcoming school year. And I think that I also struggle with, I think that no matter how this goes, it's just not, it's not easy. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be hard on somebody, a lot of somebodies. I think it's, wait, Ashley had more time than I did.
Pause every time. Answer questions. You're good. I'll give you a minute.
Okay, thanks. Basically, I think it's also a disservice to only be serving one grade at a time, because that would end up with only around 30, maybe 40 students. So looking at the option of next year would be the last 7-8 year, and then the year after that, it would just be done at that point. So then those that are in 6th grade that were already planning on going into 7-8 at Nibley, they've got that opportunity, but that is the final year that model is provided. That's something I'm open to.
Any other comments in this first round or questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the second round. Ashley?
A few more questions I couldn't get to. Should this proceed, how would we support families with siblings who would leave the district to return to their boundary LEA and thus may lose a year of varsity eligibility in sports?
You mean eighth graders at Nibley that are?
No, when we voted to close schools, we talked a lot about siblings and the impacts to siblings. As we get up into 7th and 8th grade, we have a lot more high school siblings. And many students come to Nibley to go Nibley K-8 straight to Highland. And they have multiple siblings at Highland who will lose a year of varsity eligibility in sports if their family returns to the boundary LEA if the K-8's dissolved. So what do we do in instances like that where our actions precipitate parent behavior that causes loss of varsity eligibility?
So, I mean, I can't direct what families do. So you're saying that if a student left 8th grade and went back to another school, and I don't.
Maybe another school outside of the
Outside of the district, I mean, clearly the student that was at Highland could stay at Highland and play. That could certainly be a choice the family made. If they were close enough to get to Nibley and Highland, then I'm not sure I can answer for every single family in the district or out of the district that might be coming to Nibley.
So we wouldn't support that issue that was raised by parents?
I have not heard that has been an issue raised by parents. I also don't know that, I mean, one of the concerns or one of the issues is that as students come up through Nibley, they don't have a lot of those opportunities. They don't choose to play a lot of this. I mean, we don't have the sports at Nibley to support them going immediately into a Highland sports team. So that has not been something that any parent has raised to have you heard that? We have not heard that concern.
That's interesting. I did hear at the community forum, Dr. Taylor.
Do you mean like if an 8th grader was?
Sibling. She's referring to if a family decides to leave because the younger sibling is now
Is not
returning to the
there.
base school.
Will they take the high school student as well?
Remember that through Utah High School Activities Association, they can apply for a waiver. And what the district can do is then support that waiver as that child transitions back to their boundary school. But we would hope to keep, because of the quality of our middle school programs, to be able to keep those parents and those families within the system.
But in the instance if they were listening to this meeting, for instance, the district could support them in their waiver?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Why did the district go back on a plan proposed by a past superintendent for a K-8 IB feeder into Highlands IB program at Nibley?
Actually, we met several times with the faculty at Nibley, and one of the things with the K-8 model for IB programs is that the staff has to agree to do that. And so Dr. Parsons and I actually met 3 times with the faculty at a faculty meeting, two or 3 times at the faculty meeting. And the principal at Nibley at that time also supported that and attempted to get that support so that we could move forward with a program like that. The district was willing to support that, but we didn't get the necessary support from the teachers, a significant number of the teachers.
That's helpful. My last question is, why did we choose to place DLI at Nibley when it is not a Clayton feeder? And in a related question, why would we not consider an overall boundary study to identify these mismatched feeder pattern errors rather than just taking one stab at one program at one school?
So a couple of reasons. First, the Nibley DLI pattern actually started with the ELP program. So it will be about 4 years before any of the neighborhood schools, the neighborhood program students reach 7th grade, which, as most districts do when they establish an elementary DLI pattern, would give us a couple of years to look at that and decide, because we don't need to decide today. The ELP students were already pointed to Clayton, but we can decide what we want to do with that feeder pattern for the neighborhood program. And if it is such that we decide that we want to place support for that at Hillside, we would have a couple of years to work with Hillside to be able to place a teacher there, to continue that through to Highland. And I have talked with Highland. They have actually placed some teachers in place, hoping to continue that DLI program through at Highland, including possibly even teaching a couple of core classes in Spanish to provide additional support to students academically in Spanish.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Cool.
So I know that, like, you know, closure means closure or reconfiguration, but would there be any future discussions of like bringing it back or reconfiguring it in a way in the future?
I can answer that one. Pretty much no. In that, what we're finding with this program is it's just not working as intended. And some districts have gone to K-8s. They typically tend to be in more rural areas where you only need one school for a certain number of kids, and so, but they aren't a typical pattern. There is some advantage in students transferring fewer times between schools. It's hard for some kids who may be particularly vulnerable to make a change in schools. I think that might have been what propelled some of this interest in doing it. But it hasn't been enough of a challenge that districts or our district has considered making more K-8s in order to solve that. Rather, we've found that the model with the middle school is better for our kids. So ending this program, I mean, a future board may choose to do something different, but if this program were ended, this team that I work with and myself would not be recommending those kind of programs in the near future. Is that what you were asking there, Helena?
Yes, so I guess when during the inception of the idea, even that, I guess idealistic version of it would not be a good fit in this scenario.
Well, we found that one of the problems is with our staffing and with this need for specialized teachers, it's very hard to offer that for a very few number of students. Particularly when the number gets down, it's below 70 now, it's something like that. So there aren't very many students there to serve, and it's very hard for us to provide the variety of classes to a small group. So that's been a real challenge with this. The idea of 150 was that there would be enough FTE, enough teachers allocated to the building that you could provide more of that model in place. But without that, and we haven't gotten near that with our enrollment in 20 years, we just don't have the ability to do that unless we're going to invest a great deal more in this 7th and 8th than we do in other schools.
Dr. Grant, can you break that down to me, that notion of investment? And, I'm hearing a lot about inequities with the program as it relates to other schools. What kinds of financial or other FTE types of inequities might we see running a small program like this?
And I'll start by echoing some of the things that parents have said. Some parents have really appreciated a small program, and they have appreciated the community approach within a small program, and the familiarity of the teachers in the building and the community, and have chosen that. But in terms of inequities, there is a piece of this that is, the parents are choosing this with the acknowledgement of what the program is. They have been in the school for years, they know how the 7th and 8th runs, they have that sense, they have the chance to go see what's offered and what's not offered in the school. But in truth, really, the students that are in that program are not offered the range of courses. And for us to offer that range of courses, we would have to put many more adults in the building serving those students, and that just hasn't been available to us to do, or a choice that we've wanted to make, to kind of overstaff that school in order to meet the middle school needs in a middle school program. So essentially they get middle school core curriculum with elementary school additions and model of all the extracurricular stuff and things around the core courses. That's the combined program that's offered right now. Did that get at what you were asking, Nate?
I think so. I think what my understanding of some of the inequity is that maintaining a smaller program like we have at Nibley could also be taking away from the opportunities financially or through FTE with our middle schools as well.
Don't know that I would quite say that, because we staff the program, I'm gonna look to a nod from Logan Hall, that we staff the program based on the number of students there and the way they teach the core across 6, 7, and 8, which makes sense because the core is more similar 6, 7, 8 together. So the staffing patterns within the school, they're working on the FTE that are allocated based on students.
That makes sense. Thank you.
But I could also, President Salazar, add to your point that if, for instance, Hillside were to gain another 70 students, when we think about the offerings, it's really easy to think in a middle school that would be, let's just bring a choir class over there, or let's just bring an orchestra class over there. But that would be, we couldn't bring one full FTE over for that. That would be a 1 or 2 period addition there. But at Hillside, that might really round out some FTE that would fill a full FTE. So while it doesn't take away at this point, one of the things that we know is that, when a school is just a little bit larger, then that does help with that staffing piece, especially around some of those classes that if they don't fill, it's hard to justify that full FTE.
I guess one of my other questions is, how many Nibley Park neighborhood middle school aged kids attend Hillside or other middle schools?
Ellen has that
And
information,
since we're in
actually.
the-
You just looked that
in
up.
the context of
Yes.
reconfiguration, in this context of school closure, I know like transportation and busing are something that we look at when we go through these processes. What is available for these neighborhood kids if they aren't attending Nibley K through 8, or 7 through 8, excuse me?
Yes, and also I'll start while you get this open with transportation. And we have spoken with transportation about whether there would be sufficient room to make sure that people could get on the right bus to get to the right school. And Ken Martinez has said that that would not be an issue as we looked at those bus routes.
Okay.
This year, 29 kids in Nibley Park boundaries attend Hillside. Last year was 33. The year before that, it was 34 students. However, overall, 43 students in Nibley Park boundaries left, 70 kids stayed. The year before that, 48 students left, 57 stayed. And 22-23, 48 students left, 56 stayed. So we're seeing about 40 to 50%
Split.
leave
Mhm.
out of the boundaries
And some-
versus that stay.
Okay, no, that's helpful. And thank you for answering the transportation question as well. Charlotte?
Yeah, how many teachers would they be moving? The 7th and 8th grade teachers, are there 3 teachers? Okay, so would they be moving to another school?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
To another middle
Yes,
school?
because they are secondary endorsed, and so.
2 of them are secondary endorsed.
sorry, 2 of them are
One of them
second-
is
one of-
elementary endorsed. So that would depend on openings within the school. If the elementary endorsed teacher would stay within the school with that seniority and such, so, and can teach the classes. So I'm not sure we've played out all that scenario completely because the decision hasn't been made. But there's the possibility that if there's an opening, one teacher could stay. And the others would teach in a middle school setting. The other 2.
Any other questions, Charlotte?
That's all.
Bryce, do you have any questions?
Not at this point.
And it looks like we may have lost Mohammed. He did text me because he's observing Ramadan. He may have stepped away to observe fast. So I texted him to see if he was going to be rejoining us this evening. But nonetheless, I think we're at a point now where we do need to, where I need to call for a vote to move this to the action agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we place Nibley Park grade level reconfiguration on the action agenda.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ashley?
I'm concerned that moving this to action without answering my first question, which is why we're declining to use the OSP procedures, is a mistake.
Thank you for noting that. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll start with a roll call vote with Amanda.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nick Salazar, yes. I don't see Mohammed on there. Nonetheless, we do have 4 votes, so that motion does pass. We will revisit this on the action agenda. Our first item on the action agenda is the
Thank you all.
Thank you. Is the G5 APs. I will entertain a motion to start our conversation there again and potential decision.
You want a motion to start the conversation?
It's typically how we do it, yes.
I move that we open discussion, I'm sorry, action.
Move to approve, not
Great.
approve.
Sorry,
It's
sorry.
okay, Charlotte, we're
Okay.
new.
How do I make an amendment?
Well, you can move a particular thing with that desire in it.
Yeah, we can't make an amendment to,
Okay.
we would have to open the discussion up with a motion to
General
approve.
counsel-
If she just wants to make a motion with an amendment to the AP, she can.
She can do that, yeah.
But not amend a motion that's not there.
Oh.
I think she wants to amend the AP.
Correct.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion to
Well,
approve or not
I
approve?
could take a stab at that. If anybody else would like to take a stab at that.
Yours might be different, your amendment may be different than others.
I would move that we send it back to the policy committee for more discussion so Charlotte can provide her suggested amendments to the policy committee.
Is that a formal motion, Ashley? Is there a second to that motion?
Is that what you wanted, Charlotte? Okay, so
We need a second first before I'll entertain discussion. See. Are you seconding?
No.
Okay, no second. Not seeing one, the motion fails. I will look for another motion to either approve or not approve, or along with language potentially that would amend our APs there.
Charlotte, give a stab at it. Give her the bandwidth to verbalize it.
So what I'm guessing, Charlotte, is that you are potentially wanting to move to approve with a potentially addition of a timeline that would meet some of the discussion that we had earlier. That's a huge assumption on my end.
Meet the timeline?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have two amendments.
So maybe just throw them out there and then
Move
people
Okay.
can try to help you phrase it.
So I move that we adopt this with two changes. And do I need to outline those changes?
Yes, please.
The first change would be the first change would be to add a study period, I don't know of what length, to the grade reconfiguration. Just a little bit more time on that. I think 2 hearings is not adequate. So I'd like to extend that a bit.
You want to define a bit since it's a motion?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Ms. Kendall, I see you standing up. I think, I'll let general counsel weigh in on that one.
So since I would be the one amending it, I guess I just need some clarity. When you say 2 hearings, are you talking about hearings for the public to come speak? Because even with boundary changes, it's 1.
Okay, let's see.
Personal privilege. I think that she means the amount of time that the discussion happens, not the number of actual hearings that are required. So
Okay.
like, this can take up to 60 days. This must take 30 days. This can happen no sooner than 90 days. I believe she wants a time period like boundary reconfiguration or boundary alignment has and like school closure has for grade level reconfiguration.
And I understand that that's probably what it is. I just wanted to be clear for the public listening.
Yes.
That I wanted to clarify that we're not talking about more
Time.
public hearings.
Okay, no more, no. So I'm looking at where is it? Do you know which number it is for the grade reconfiguration?
It's the
I had it and then I,
Roman numeral 4,
Yeah.
page 5.
okay. All right, so. So the recommendation comes to the board, then we hold 1 public comment period during an upcoming board meeting. Maybe we need a study or,
May I? If you look at Roman numeral 2, B, the G5 administrator recommendation under school closure, where it talks about at least 90 days prior to the board voting to close any school, they'll gather the information, yada, yada. So it's basically saying at least 90 days before the board vote, we're going through that process of consideration. Is that kind of what you're leaning on?
that the board is?
Yeah, well, the district would have to provide information to the board at least 90 days before we make our decision. So that elongates that time of consideration and discussion.
And that is for a school closure, so the boundary has a different timeline?
Okay. And this would not affect the Nibley Park. It would affect, it's just our policy for future. Then it's.
Get a read on that?
Point of order,
I would
we
like to-
agreed in the last meeting that we would move forward if this policy was approved, or when this policy was approved, we would move forward with this set of administrative procedures on Nibley in our last meeting.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
If it's confunneling it.
We approved as a board?
we gave you direction that we would follow it, but at the same time, we're getting way into the weeds. Charlotte, I need you to make a motion, one way or the other.
So,
What
Board
is
Member
it you're looking for?
Jefferson, so, the provision that Board Member Longwell referenced was for school closures, which was 90 days before a vote's taken, these things happen. That's for a school closure. For boundaries, state law outlines a 60-day window. So I don't know if you're thinking that this would align with school boundaries, which would be a 60-day window. If you're thinking this would, if we don't need 60, we need, I don't know what you're thinking, but there are separate provisions. If the idea was to align this with boundaries, it would be 60 or 90, or if you wanted to come up with a different period, or you just wanted to indicate that a decision needs to be made by a certain period of time. Like, I think those are some of your options, because if you wanted to change the deadline, I'm
And
just not
throwing
sure.
it out there, Charlotte, too, kind of, it's your motion you're working on, but
Yeah.
what Ashley kind of recommended is, you're on the policy subcommittee, right?
Yes.
So it could just be a motion to move it back to the policy subcommittee like Ashley recommended, so that you guys can kind of further dissect these timelines to,
These two things.
what, sorry?
Yeah, so I hear you about the deadlines. You would like them to come earlier to give people more notice, but yet that can affect a good decision from being made also.
As far
So-
as,
Again, we're
That's
getting too
clear.
far
Sorry.
into the weeds of
Hey.
discussion. I need a motion.
All right, the motion is,
do you want to make a motion? Do we want to table it? Do you want
Point
to
of
move
order,
it?
I need a motion.
I move that
Sorry, Charlotte.
we
She has three.
table this.
No.
No. What?
Sorry.
No,
Calling for a motion for a table, you can.
I move that we, does table mean we can bring it up?
It means that we would need to revisit it in the subsequent meeting or in a timeline that you state in your motion, if I'm correct, parliamentarian Kindle.
If we all approve, if we have a unanimous decision, that gets, the conversation ends tonight.
But we can't, if it does go back to subcommittee, we wouldn't be able to take a vote on it until the next meeting. Is that right?
If we held a special subcommittee meeting, because we don't have one scheduled, but we could
Right.
call one. And then it would have to be removed from the table. It's not just automatic that it comes off the table at the next board meeting.
Are you wanting to visit it at the subcommittee, or are you just wanting to table it for the next board meeting?
No, I would like to fix it and make it better. So I just don't have that language with me at the moment. So I withdraw my motion. Okay.
Is there another motion on the table? Ashley?
I would reiterate my motion that I would direct this back to the policy subcommittee to make the recommended amendments.
I second it.
All right, being that that is the case, any discussion?
Can I just have clarification as to what the recommended changes are?
It's my understanding those recommendations would be about the study periods involving parent and school or teacher voice, if I understood the conversation correctly previously.
So there's no specific direction as to those.
We can send an email clarifying, because I know what I've been seeking, which, again, reconfiguration is similar to a closure. A closure has a more considerate timeline, even though it's not what I prefer. And then I believe what Charlotte was alluding to was giving longer time for discussion and review of a school reconfiguration, instead of having such a short window with very minimal expectations. Those are, I guess, the two main issues, but ultimately refer back to my first email.
I would clarify that it's Board Member Anderson's motion.
Yes. Is that what you're seeking as well, Ashley?
I think that definitely the study period is what I was thinking of, but when I said proposed amendments, I meant whatever Charlotte felt she was unable to verbalize, but may be able to take the time to share in a policy subcommittee, rather than something one or more individuals specifically desired, just the time to discuss proposed amendments, if that offers clarity.
Any more discussion? Charlotte?
What would the study period, that's a study period where it's brought to the board and say we're going to be studying this. What period would you think is appropriate?
I think if I was thinking about the example I gave, which is a potential K-5 reconfiguration that had a big scope, that's something like we have for boundary reconfiguration or school closure would be appropriate, and having nothing would be inappropriate. With that said, I think it could be very flexible, and I believe the policy subcommittee would have a good discussion about that, which is why I moved to send it to them.
We also have Mohammed. Mohammed, do you have any comment to our discussion right now on sending G5 APs back to the policy subcommittee?
Yeah, thank you. Just listening to this conversation and the confusion it is causing, sadly to say, I mean, like if even the director of policy is like trying to make sense out of this, then all we are doing over here is sending it back, is kicking the can down the road again. Instead of like, this is a living document. So, and this is living policy. And so this idea of just like tabling it back and sending it back and discussing it more and all of that, I mean, like, I say move, make a decision, let's vote on it, move it, and this is like, subject to adjustment down the road, if needed to, hence the reason behind having a policy committee.
Thank you, Mohammed. Bryce, any discussion from you? We haven't heard you on this one yet.
I mean, I have to say I kind of agree with Mohammed. We've reviewed it multiple times already. I would like to take a vote. However, it's the will of the majority of the board. I'm happy to take a look at it again.
I similarly, just to take my time, would agree with Mohammed and Bryce that we've studied this. I think the policy subcommittee has taken this on once, and then additionally in another special policy subcommittee that was held. But it is the will of the board to look at this again and bring it back. Of course, I think we all would support that. So I'm going to call it for a vote. Again, to restate the motion, it would be to move the G5 APs back to the policy subcommittee for further study and recommendations based on a study period or timeline as it relates to a number of different things, potentially wide scope and large impacting grade level reconfiguration on a district scale, and also potentially with what we're dealing with here with Nibley Park. We'll start with Amanda.
Amanda Longblow, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, no.
Correct.
No.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, no.
Mohammed, no.
That's a tie vote, so the motion dies, essentially. So I guess.
Is there another motion?
Is there another motion?
Are you wanting?
Okay. I move that we pass the G5 administrative policy with strike that, please. I move that we I don't know if I can do this. Can I ask that we reconsider our decision last board meeting in asking the superintendent to use the new,
Not on this particular agenda item, I don't believe so, because it is already,
the next one we could though?
I don't understand what the next one is.
Oh.
My thinking on
Nibley
this,
Park.
and correct me if I'm wrong, parliamentarian, is that, because the Nibley Park reconfiguration is an agenda item, we would have to manage and deal with that decision separately from a motion that we're talking about with the administrative procedures right now,
Okay, and that would be
later.
later, okay. All right, I move that we accept this G5 administrative policy with the following amendments or changes, that we add a 60-day study period, and also that we on the school closure period, that we have a deadline, the first deadline, November 30th, let's see. And the second one, the middle of February.
For the boundaries.
Yeah, oh, is that the boundary study?
If there's one deadline for closure and then.
No, for the closure.
Oh, no, I think what you're saying, if I may, Charlotte, is basically you're changing the deadline on the final board vote to November 30th, which inherently then the boundary study automatically follows the separate written language that allows that 60 days, so we don't need to change that
You're correct.
date.
This is just the school closure.
Yeah, so you're just
Timeline.
changing that November 30th date instead of December 31, and then that moves up the boundary deadline automatically.
Or how about December 15 to February 15?
Your motion, I can't say anything.
Okay,
That you only need to do it, correct me if I'm
That
wrong,
the
Christine,
board-
that you only need to identify the deadline of the final board vote. Because the boundary closure deadline is
oh, the
part of
final
language.
board vote for closure.
And the boundary follows by 60
Okay.
days, no matter where that's set, essentially.
And, correct.
Yes.
So that would give the district about 45 days to do it because of the 2-week break for the holidays.
If we did that deadline at December 15th, and would 45 days be adequate?
I guess it just depends on how comprehensive the study would be and
I hope we would be.
I mean, technically, you're going to run into that issue anyway, because the last board meeting in December is typically the middle of December.
Okay, all right, so that's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'm still confused by the motion. Can we just repeat it once
You
more?
mind repeating it again, Charlotte?
Okay, did you get the study period for the grade reconfiguration?
I think so. I just need it to be,
And I
Yeah.
just have a question, so you're not giving a deadline for the school closure? You're
Yeah.
just making a study period?
No, a study period for the grade reconfiguration.
Right, but no deadline for it.
Correct.
No, I don't think that's accurate.
It was 60 days.
Right,
Oh.
but there's no deadline by which the
No.
grade level
there's
reconfiguration
no-
decision needed to be made. So she's not amending that and putting in a deadline, is all I'm trying to understand. So you're changing the deadlines for school closure, and then the 60 days would track, but there is no deadline for when the decision on grade level reconfigurations needs to be made. I'm just,
Well, no, let's align that with the boundary, the boundary closure deadlines.
That one
If
gets
we could.
complicated too. In the way we've set this up, so that school closure has to happen by a certain date. Boundary can actually float on its own, so we could, as a district, change boundaries without closing schools. But it would be this 60-day period that would happen, and that could happen anytime during the year. Essentially,
Oh.
that decision could be made.
Oh, it is?
Separate
Okay.
from closing.
So there's no deadline, it's just a 60-day period.
You just wanted to reallocate students within boundaries.
But
So there is I think you'd want instead to set a deadline for the configuration separate from other aspects of the policy. If you wanted to set a deadline for reconfiguration of grades.
Okay. Well, it should be earlier in the year. Let's say, I would say also February 15th then. End of February. End of February.
Does that help you, Bryce?
It doesn't.
Okay.
Okay, so the reconfiguration would have a study period of 60 days and a deadline. The board would have to vote by the end of February on any grade reconfiguration. And the deadlines for school closure, if we could, I would propose, or I move that we change it to December 15th and
February 15th.
yeah, February 15th
For boundaries.
for school closures.
For February 15th
Oh.
would be the boundaries.
Oh,
You don't need to
is
make
that
part.
60 days?
Yeah, that's just the 60 days, so it doesn't
Okay.
need a separate statement really.
Follow you. Do you got it, or want me to find
I got it.
Okay,
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
All right. Ms. Kindle, based on the motion, would these timelines fit within state statute, knowing that we have those identified? It doesn't necessarily matter when we take these on, but as long as we meet those 60 and 90-day windows, do you feel like we're in a position to do that if this is approved?
Yeah. I don't have a calendar to count all the calendar days, so as long as we just go with the December 15th and then 60 days later,
Yeah.
that's good, because I don't
Okay.
know counting.
Just the December 15th date would be changed on the school closure. Okay.
Any further discussion? Ashley?
I just think it seems clear to me that most of us do not know what we would be voting on right now, and we haven't seen the language, and usually when amendments are made in this way, it's on a screen with the red line edit, and we're all certain with what we're doing. So I can't support this because I don't think it's good to make policy in the abstract by notes, and if it goes forward, I would be concerned that we're not thinking through some of the unintended consequences of language that we have not seen written, nor prepared, nor placed in the context of a situation.
And I'm happy to make those amendments and perhaps put it on the consent agenda for the next board meeting as a redlined edit with a cover memo if you would feel more comfortable with a motion directing me to make those edits and place it on the consent agenda for the upcoming meeting. And then if there were still concerns, it could obviously be pulled off of consent at that time.
Ashley?
I would ask a follow-up question of our parliamentarian. If, for instance, I was more comfortable with exactly what you said, which is directing it to be edited and amended and approved on consent if there were no objections, may I offer that as a substitute motion?
You can.
I would substitute that the board direct General Counsel Christina Kindle to draft the proposed amendments by board member Fife Jefferson. And should there be no objections to those amendments after dissemination to the board, it would be placed on the consent agenda of the next meeting.
I second.
Okay. My understanding of the substitute motions that we have to vote on the substitute first,
Correct,
and then we can vote on the original motion.
correct.
So being that we are running short on time and we've exhausted a lot of time already on this, I'm going to go ahead and call the substitute motion for a vote, starting with Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Amanda Longwell, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
All right, that motion passes. We will now revisit the original motion. We'll start with a roll call vote with Charlotte.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
So for clarity, we're saying no to the original, well, sorry. We are voting on the
go back to my
original
motion.
and then we're doing the amendment. So if we want to see the amendment where it comes to the consent agenda for discussion, we say,
You just approved that.
so what am I doing with the original motion then?
Voting on it or not, but the other motion has been approved. So presumably this motion would not pass, but you can vote
Okay,
however
and
you
that was
want.
what I was getting clarity on,
Right.
was if I want Ashley's substitute
You already
to go,
voted
this
for
is a
yes.
And we don't want the other to happen tonight, we want
Right.
Ashley's to happen
Right.
at the next meeting.
I need
Okay,
to
no on
change my
this,
vote.
on the original then.
Nate?
Yes.
I need to change my vote, please.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Bryce Williams, no.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, no.
Ashley was a no. Nate Salazar, no. Mohammed?
Mohammed, no.
Amanda, no. Okay, that passes.
Thank you, Christina.
The next item on our agenda is our student fee schedule, policies, and APs. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the 25-26 student fee schedule policies and APs as posted.
A second.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a roll call vote with Ashley.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Amanda Longwell, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
That motion passes. Moving on to our final action agenda item is the Nibley Park reconfiguration. I'll entertain a motion.
I have a clarifying question.
Please.
Because we agreed as a board we would move forward under the new procedures, it seems most reasonable that we would postpone this until we've actually passed the new procedures. So can you be more specific? Are you anticipating going against the direction from the last meeting?
No, I am not.
So would it be acceptable to you then, for instance, if I moved that we postpone this item until the next meeting?
If that's a motion that you would like to make, I can't direct the board to make a motion of approval or non-approval or otherwise. So if that's the motion that you would like to make, please state it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second to postponing the Nibley Park reconfiguration discussion or action item this evening. Is there any discussion? Ashley?
I have one clarifying question for myself, for our parliamentarian. It's going on the action agenda, but the new policies which we agreed we would consider that would be posted on consent should have a requisite study period, which now we have not followed. What would be our obligation, having given board direction to follow new policies, which we anticipate would be approved with some type of amendment for a grade level reconfiguration timeframe? In acknowledging that timeframe on the, is that what we would acknowledge on the action agenda? Or would we retroactively assume the policy? Does that make sense?
And may I add to that a little bit? I'm remembering now the direction given by the board. So the question on the table at the time was, should the superintendent move forward with her current authority to make a grade level change? Or move forward with the G5 policy that was proposed at that time? And move forward with that. So it wasn't as approved in the future, it was as proposed there, because there weren't these amendments and changes to timeline and study session that were part of that discussion at that time. As I remember the direction, it was to move forward with that proposed G5 policy.
Board President Salzer, it's my recollection actually that this was your reservation, that we were deciding to move forward without knowledge of the policy, and would we be comfortable moving forward knowing that the policy may not be approved, could be delayed, or could be changed, and ultimately the decision the board was making is whether or not we felt it was important for the board to weigh in on a grade level reconfiguration rather than the current policy, which allows the superintendent to unilaterally do that. So the way I understood it is what you said, acknowledging that all of these other things could happen, do we still want to give that direction? And the answer was yes. So I pose my former question again to our general counsel about what would our obligations be about could appropriate action on this item be to initiate the requisite time period as it potentially amended?
Could that be the board's direction?
On the subsequent meeting.
Of course, that could be
Yeah.
100%, yes, you could make that. Okay, requisite.
Thank you.
And I do want to say that I was looking through my notes from the last meeting and I noted, as my best recollection was the intent of the G5 policy. So I hear what you're saying, Dr. Grant, that, you know, if I were in your shoes, I would take it as to what the intent was at that time. And it's hard to function if it's a moving ball, so I think that does need to be regarded.
I think my point of personal privilege at this point would be to change our direction and give the superintendent the authority to do that under the current G5, because now that's 2 weeks and we're already defeating the purpose of this element of parent response, feedback, timing, planning. So in the absence of our ability to make a decision tonight regarding G5 or Nibley Park, my recommendation to this board would to be following the current G5 because that is what we currently operate under.
I would object with that direction as it was not given to parents or community members and goes against the face of the intended amendment to require actual study of reconfigurations that come to the board on a timeline.
I'm going to actually call for a motion, one way or the other.
So we don't have a motion, I can just start
You can start a
going
motion.
for it.
Yeah.
I thought we had a motion on the table.
I thought we did too.
Motion on the table to postpone to the next meeting when G5 would be decided on consent.
We don't have a second.
We don't have a second.
We don't have a
correct?
second,
Oh,
so-
Bryce, sorry, thank you, Bryce. I'm gonna call for a vote then, starting with, actually, Superintendent, you said you wanted to weigh in on that, is what you said earlier, what you, had.
It was, but I have another thing that I'd like to
Please.
raise, if I may. Just that, so what at this point, it sounds like a delay coming. What I'd like the board to consider is that we have stirred the nest, and I'd like to solve it for the community as soon as we can. So what I would like to do is be quick about things in the way that I don't want to wait and take this up again in November. I would prefer if we could sort of follow on, perhaps in the April agenda to again, and maybe we set a timeline in starting. I don't know how to do this without G5 in hand, but what I would like to encourage the board to do is make a decision on this before the end of the school year. Understanding that it wouldn't take effect then, because if we're gonna pass G5 and hold to G5, it won't take effect this fall. Is that the correct interpretation of where we are with things? So if the board is moving away from the idea of voting in order to implement the change for this fall, I would still like to ask the board to take up the vote sooner than later and make the decision, even if it's a year from now that it takes effect, because we're in the midst of all this. I think for the families to sit in that uncertainty and the teachers to do so is hard. Something you could add there, Christina?
I would just like to say that in terms of the current G5, there is no process for outline for reconfiguration. So you have the option of, the board has the option, and you, superintendent, have the option of recommending a process with whatever timeline you would like to give parents closure on this issue sooner as opposed to later, irrespective of the new G5, because you're working in a void right now. So the direction easily could be whatever timeline you would like right now.
Yes, and following the board's direction at the last meeting, I assumed, I'd made the assumption that G5 would be approved. I didn't anticipate the study sessions. That puts us at a time frame that I don't think is tenable
No, I
to
just
make the
meant
changes.
Board President Salazar said, let's go with the current G5, but there's nothing in
Oh,
that.
yeah, thanks.
And so the idea
That
would be
directs
that you
that.
could set a, however many more days moving forward, so the decision could still be made in May or June, even though that's not gonna comply with the new G5. But it would be for the following year, you know what I mean?
I think so. Maybe the direction could be from the board.
But we still do have a motion.
We still have a motion. and a
We have a
second, so
motion.
we gotta
Yeah. Well,
Okay, what's the motion on the table?
To postpone until the next meeting.
And we have a motion and a second on the table. I'm gonna go ahead and call for a motion, or for a vote, with you, Charlotte.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, no.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Amanda Longwell, no.
Mohammed, yes.
Alright, that motion passes. That concludes our action agenda. Board, just so you know, we have reached about a 3.5 hour time limit to our 3 to 4 hour limit. So if we can keep board member reports pretty brief, that would be ideal. And we also do have the need for a closed session after this board member and superintendent reports. Superintendent, you have a report for us?
I don't know if this is kosher or not. I wonder if the board could direct me to start a study session on Nibley now, so that we could complete decision-making by the end of the year.
Superintendent, we're already taking this up at the next
Okay.
meeting, so let's wait.
We just won't be able to complete it by the end of the year, so the families won't know the decision until summertime.
Although I think in our discussion, we already determined that it would not be happening in this upcoming school year, so.
Right, my interest is in getting a decision about closure or reconfiguration or
Right.
not reconfiguration
But at least they know it's not going to happen
this year.
immediately.
Yep.
You have a report for us this evening?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I have to log into my computer because I wrote it down.
I'll start with board member report. Charlotte, do you have a report?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was able to visit Edison Elementary School and spend about 3 hours there with different, with the ELP, the Magnet gifted program, and was extremely impressed and extremely encouraged that our students on the west side have access to an excellent education, and that they have, for the first, that this ELP program is really, really important, and that our students are benefiting from it, and finally being served fully and challenged.
Thank you, Charlotte. Helena?
Yes, I want to shout out West High's robotics team, Red Rock. And they did amazing as a team at the Utah Regional. I believe they got 8th place, 8th seed. But 2 particular awards were given to the advisor, Allison Bielsen, who is amazing. She was presented with the Woody Flowers Award, which is extremely prestigious within the state, and it shows her dedication as a mentor. Very grateful for her. And Ella Franson, who's the captain, was named Dean's List finalist, which is extremely competitive, and yeah, great job to her.
You took something off my list, so it'll be shorter. I know we amply acknowledged the incredible women's basketball team at West, but we didn't yet acknowledge the West students who also placed in state swim. Congratulations, Lily and Ofa. 3 women's wrestlers also earned podium finishes, Claire, Audrey, and Mary. West students are also advancing to the next round of the state Sterling Scholar Competition in speech, theater, and debate, English, math, science, and technical science. West FBLA students competed at the state competition, qualifying 13 winners for nationals. West High School's HOSA, including our student board member, did set a new milestone this year at the State Leadership Conference with an unprecedented 93 students, qualifying 61 from the high school and 32 from the middle school for the International Leadership Conference happening in Nashville. Additionally, I want to remind schools that the Salt Lake City Arts Council Artist in the Classroom Grant closes in just a week. I've been an instructor for this grant in the past before my board service, but that's not why I share the reminder. The grant is essentially only for our school district and city charters, and money rolls forward every year due to low participation in Artist in the Classroom. In Precinct 3, Wasatch Elementary uses this money to fund Wachira, a percussion instructor, and Ensign funds Tanner Dance. It's regrettable that so many funds go unused and less than half of the awards are going to Title I schools. I think many in the district worked hard for several years in focus groups to make this application easier for Title I schools to apply, and it continues to bring dance, visual art, music, and theater opportunities to our schools that may currently only have a half-time art teacher and part-time upper grade music. Without these granted resources. I encourage staff to continue to share the application reminder, especially with our Title I schools, some of whom I understand have regrettably been actively discouraged to apply by their administrators.
Bryce?
Yeah, I'm gonna take my board report a little bit of a different direction, and rather than share the great things that have happened or things I've been able to participate in the last couple of weeks, I want to share my frustration with the legislative session in our state legislature. They've done a lot of harm this session, and I would encourage anyone who has not signed the referendum yet to find someone who has a packet and sign that.
Not on school property. Let's
Yes,
make it valid,
outside,
shall we?
sorry.
Thank you. Amanda?
Just a couple of things. One, acknowledging the unified basketball team. They just, I think it was regionals. I'm not sure how they went, but they've got unified sport championships coming up. And I just sent a message to Heather Brown to figure out if our team made it or not. So I'll keep you posted. And then a shout out to what's very near and dear to my heart. My daughter with Down syndrome. Friday is National World Down Syndrome Day. March 21st for the third chromosome that results in Down syndrome. So for all those who want to join in, wear your colorful, vibrant socks to represent that extra anomaly in the world that makes fabulous kids. So big shout out this Friday. Let's see your socks.
Got it. Thanks, Amanda. The only thing I wanted to report on is I had the lovely privilege to be a judge for the Northwest Middle School History Fair. Had a great time there. I saw Dr. Hall. I saw other folks from our district there. Wonderful presentations and exhibits that we got to see, and I'm hoping for the best for our folks who made it out into the regions, and I'm sure we'll hear about them soon. Dr. Grant?
Great, yeah. I'm going to second Board Member Longwell's celebration of National Down Syndrome Day and appreciate those that are going to wear crazy socks on that day.
You can do it.
The rocket, yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, there you go. Just wanted to give a couple of updates. Our math department here partnered with the Utah Council of Teacher of Mathematics to put on a film here for about 130 people. There were teachers, administrators, board members. Here we had a couple, as well as administrators from our state board. And just appreciated that people were here, and the film was called Counted Out. Math is Power, with the idea that being mathematically literate helps us solve and understand problems and speak to each other about the crises in our world, and that without that, we're kind of left in a weakened position without that numeracy. So a great experience that way. The Utah Council of Teachers of Mathematics hosted 314 sites on Pi Day, 314. So cheers for that. Also want to mention that there's an update on our after-school program, and I'm going to shout out to our after-school team and to Logan Hall for the work they've been doing to make sure that our after-school programs will begin on the first day of school when our kids come to class. Typically that has started after the second week, so we will be providing after-school programs on the first day of school, and we have sent out, or will be sending out, enrollment materials to families sooner than usual to let them know that this is available and they can begin to sign up and make plans for the year. So, thanks.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to enter closed executive session.
On March 18, 2025, move that the board go into closed executive session, discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, pending or reasonable imminent litigation and collective bargaining, and that the board adjourn immediately upon the conclusion of closed session.
Second.
All right. I'll take a roll call vote starting with Ashley.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Salazar, yes.
Amanda Longley, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
That motion passes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.
You'll have your travel.